across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. It is Monday. Hurrah! We're live across the United Kingdom. JK back on drive. New look team today. Ryan, not here. Jodie, not here. Dean, bit of a ladies' man, got to be honest. Bit of a slick back, tans out, everything's going on. He's here. He's geared up to impress the bosses and the ever-reliable, brilliant Faith on the phones. If you want to be part of the debate between now and 7 o'clock, 0344 499 1000 is the only number you need. Now, bearing in mind I'm an old git and you lot know what you're doing, you can also send a WhatsApp voice note. Start with, if you send a voice note on WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000, go, Dean, are you single? 0344 499 1000. Text me throughout the show, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Great guests lined up today. Great debate. But let's just talk about really the two stories that matter most. I said it just then. I'll say it just now about the march on Saturday. For me, right, and I'm not... I watch the far right, I watch the far left. I just want people to be able to have their say in the right way. But I am fervently of the belief that this country is not teetering, but this country is at a very important moment in its history. I think that, as I've said for many weeks, that the silent majority have now realised that their voice counts, and the silent majority have realised that actually no longer are they going to be taken for granted. And people jump up and down. I know today is the start of the first channel migrants to be returned to France. It's the one in, one out, which turned into 2,500 in and one out. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I think a lot of British people, and many went on that march, not far-right people, across London, certainly more than the 100,000 the mainstream media lied to you about it, but many went. Many were interviewed and many said, I've worked all my life, and I've been saying this for months. I've worked all my life, I've played the game, I've tried to do it correctly, and you know what? I feel like I'm at the back of the queue. That much doesn't make them far right. It makes them people who are genuinely concerned about their country. That is such a massive, massive story. You cannot deny, you cannot avoid, you cannot ignore hundreds of thousands of people walking peacefully saying, we want our country back. We want to unite our country. We want to be proud of our flag. I know Starmer's come out today with something, and let's bring it on to him. I remember sitting here a year ago and listening to MG go on about, you know, he thinks Starmer's not going to last long. And I thought, you know, everybody would come on and say, oh, he will. They don't have a mechanism to get rid of a leader. Let me tell you, it is fair to say, read the Sun's column today, page 10, the Raptors are out for this man. He has promised so much to so many people that he lets everybody down. His latest thing this afternoon is he says that he claimed, I was not aware of the content of the emails. Well, forgive me for being, get ready with the dump button. Shouldn't he bloody well have read the emails or made it his duty as the Prime Minister of this country to know the man that he was making our ambassador to the United States? It all comes... It sounds really like a conspiracy, but, you know, this Morgan McSweeney is Chief of Staff, is very close to Mandelston. There are rumours coming out of Number 10 that Mandelston was in there before the reshuffle, that they didn't tell Starmer certain things, and you're the Prime Minister. This is ludicrous. This man stood up and he promised cronyism was gone, jobs for the boys, you know, honest, open thing. Dan Hodges said in the Mail, again I say it today, you've got two choices, Keir Starmer. Either admit, stand up, that you lied to Parliament, which means you'd have to fall on your sword, or sack Morgan McSweeney. But he won't sack Morgan McSweeney because it's all tied in together. And I think it is a government teetering on the edge. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. The other big news story of the day, Tory MP Danny Kruger has sensationally defected to Reform, declaring... Well, I'll tell you what, let's have a... This is the man. This is Prulee's son. This is a shadow minister. So not somebody who's no longer in Parliament, not a Dean Dorries, right? This is a man, a current Tory MP. That's what Danny Kruger said this morning at the Reform Party conference.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left. But I am not despondent, because conservatism is not over. It's never been needed more, and actually it's never been more vibrant. Because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative.
I've been very vocal about how a party that I voted for reform, and I'll do this show straight down the middle, wants to be very careful not to just attract, I think, embittered, pastly successful Tory MPs, right? But this is different. This is potentially a game changer. Not only does... this man's a shadow minister. This man is standing up and saying the Tory party is dead. I'd love to know what you make of it. Is it a good signing? Do you agree that this is a transformational moment in British politics? The Tory party is dead, says one of its ministers. He will walk across the Commons and defect to reform. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Or are you a reform voter who wants nothing to do with anybody from the tainted Tory side? Are they just jumping on board the bandwagon? I'd love to know what you think. Listen, I'll tell you somebody who does have an opinion. I was on the phone to this lady at 7:10 this morning because I knew it was coming. The Reform MP for Runcorn and Aylesbury. She was on a train to Carmarthen. Brave. Sarah Poaching, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I hope you can hear me.
I can, and I'm ever so grateful for you taking time out. I know you're busy out campaigning. Firstly, let's get your response to Danny Kruger, sensationally defecting to Reform this morning, and the difference. Not somebody from the past, somebody who's a current shadow minister. This is a game changer, isn't it?
I think it is. I think it is. We to get a sitting Tory, but like you say, not just anybody. Danny Kruger is highly experienced in some of the workings of government, and of course, one of the things that we as Reform UK need to be doing now is preparing for government, because you know, the polls will tell you, and we believe very much so, that Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister at the next general election. So we need certain key individuals that will help us get ready for government. And Danny Kruger has some of the skills and some of the experience that will really be able to help us as a party be in a position to govern this country after the next general election.
Nigel Farage has today tasked Danny Kruger with heading up the party's new department for preparing for government, very much in terms of what you're saying. And there's no doubt there's a skill set there. And there's no doubt, as you said, that there is a massive difference between physically having to cross the floor than somebody who's no longer in Parliament saying, you know, I've changed my stance. Out on the streets, I want to put to you the question that I've put to the audience, and they're ringing already. We'll get loads of response today. Do you find that people say we don't want anything to do with the toxic Tories? What are the reformers, the people I met at the party conference, are they saying, no, listen, we're a ship that wants to welcome as many, or are they saying, no, hold on a second, we shouldn't just be somewhere that people come to when they suddenly realise the game's up? I think it's a fair question.
It is absolutely a fair question, and we've made it very, very clear that we will not be another Conservative party. We don't need to take defecting Conservatives, and I am sure that now Danny Kruger has made this move, then plenty more will suddenly decide that actually now's the time to make the jump. But we won't take them. We don't need to take them. We have real, strong people like myself, like the other MPs, that really speak with conviction. And it's one of the attractive things about reform, is that you have people like me with real life experience that really believes now that we reflect the views of the British people. And the fact is, the Tories for 14 years have let this country down under the Boris wave. The floodgates were open for immigration. We absolutely do not want to be taking any old Tory. We will choose carefully. I think Danny is going to be a great asset.
No, I agree with that. And actually, I can almost answer that question myself. You see, a lot of people will say, and somebody said to me today, the thing is, Jez, you know, reform isn't going to be ready for government. And, you know, maybe somebody like Kruger is good, and I take that. But I also would say this. The Labour Party had 2 years and knew that they were going to get into power. They had a woman, Sue Gray, prepare for those first 100 days, and she was gone on day 93. I know you're smiling, but it's an absolute fact. The truth of the matter is, for years, politicians with government experience have been moved around from department to department. They fail here, they get sacked, they come back. Look at Mandelson, the whole thing. I actually think starting with a clean sweep is not a bad thing. People from business, people who have had other lives, people who actually, you know, can bring a different perspective. So I think that is also the narrative from a lot of people I met at the conference, where they were saying it doesn't matter if these people haven't done government. Frankly, the way it's going, could they do a worse job? No.
Well, we need a mixture. We need a mixture, don't we? We need some people that understand the machinations of government, which Danny does. But we also absolutely need business people, as you've just said. And interestingly, at our conference were businessmen that approached me and approached the other MPs, ready to come on board because they are so that they're full of hope, you know, for reform, and they want to help. They really want to help. And so I think we need a mixture of people. But you're absolutely right. What we will never be is a party of career politicians, like so many are, like the Labour front bench, who has not a jot of business experience between them.
Well, they've gone from university, haven't they, to a think tank, to no experience at all. We'll talk about them in a minute. I have to ask this question. It's been doing the rounds, and you would understand this. I have a job to do, and you do. Your leader, Nigel Farage, when Christian Wakefield changed from one party to the other, Nigel tweeted at the time and said that if you change party, there should be a by-election. What does he and what did the party think about Danny Kruger? Does the same not present itself, or is it a different scenario?
Well, I understand. That's a really good question. And the point is, there's two very different scenarios here. So when Christian Wakefield crossed the floor in that famous, it was shown on the telly, wasn't it? And I remember it vividly happening.
I called it flounced. He didn't walk, he flounced.
He did. But on a serious note, Christian changed his beliefs. He was a Conservative, and his beliefs changed to being Labour. Now that is an important point to mention, because the voters voted him in on a Conservative ticket, and he decided he was Labour. There should have been a by-election for that seat, because the voters that voted him in were no longer having their views reflected in their Member of Parliament. Now the thing is with Danny has always been on the right of politics. His beliefs haven't changed. The point that Danny is making is that the party he belonged to has changed. He believes that the Conservative Party no longer reflects his views and the views of the people that voted him in. So I think there's a very distinct difference here.
I buy that, and also I think it's backed up, your answer, brilliantly by the fact that, of course, he was Jenrick's campaign manager, wasn't he, to stand for the leadership, Danny Kruger. So he was always on the right-hand side of the party when Jenrick came out and said, stopping the boats, we need to be stronger on immigration. If you look at reform today, Danny Kruger, you look at the polls, you look at the conference, and you look at the vibe around this party, and there will forever be critics. And then you look, and I know, listen, I'm not trying to throw stones, but what an absolute farce we have. We have a Prime Minister who this afternoon has come out and said that he wouldn't have actually employed Peter Mandelson as the ambassador if he'd known the truth of it. There are rumours abounding that actually his chief of staff knew about that, but because he was one of Mandelson's chosen few. I mean, I heard a rumour this afternoon that if Morgan McSweeney had had his way, Peter Mandelson, like David Cameron, would have become Foreign Secretary, Lord Mandelson. And then you look at Blair, you look at Mandelson, these comebacks, and you wonder whether the Prime Minister of our country is nothing but, I don't know, a figurehead that got them elected. Because if you're telling me that he doesn't even know whether security checks have or haven't been made on our most important ambassador, our most important ally, the guy's not fit for the job. And also, very quickly, you lot sitting in the House of Commons, he's lied to you, hasn't he? So he has to fall on his sword. I thought that's what he said to everybody last time.
Exactly. The British people aren't fools, and this story about, oh, well, I didn't know, that's nonsense. To be fair, anybody that has the remotest interest in British politics would know that Mandelson has always been the master of the dark arts, and probably out of anybody needs some serious vetting before you appoint him to a position like the ambassador to the United States. So I don't think anyone buys that. And Keir Starmer, quite frankly, is making himself look incredibly weak by using those arguments. And I've even heard it said today that they're going to try and use the argument where his advisors didn't tell him in order to protect him.
That's ridiculous. All the stuff that was rightly thrown at Johnson about not taking decisions, and Dominic Cummings was over everything, and you should have been this, you should have been that. All those speeches about it's going to be big boy government, we're going to get it right, we're not going to listen, we're not going to take... I mean, it is a shambles. And you know MG, you're on with him a lot. Mike's been saying for 6 months he'll be gone by Christmas. I think his position is untenable very quickly, because either he has to stand in the House of Commons and say, I misled the Commons, and if that's the case, all the things that he accused Boris Johnson are levelled at him, or he has to sack McSweeney. But I suspect that McSweeney is so tied up in the fabric of Mandelson and Blair and all those silent figures that run the Labour Party, that he's caught between the devil and the deep sea. Got no bloody sympathy for the man. I think he's absolutely horrific, but I think watch this space. I really do.
I think what happened with Mandelson was that Starmer was swept up in the thought that Mandelson was close, potentially had links through to Trump.
Yeah.
You know, that he could manage that relationship with the states, and I think that got in the way of Starmer's judgment, if he has any judgment about anything. He certainly doesn't seem to be demonstrating good judgment about anything,
no.
Let alone reorganising his front bench. But so that's another story. But
Well,
yeah,
have you heard
I
the
think
other
that got in
rumour?
way,
Have you
and I
heard the
think
other
he knew
rumour?
well what was going on.
Have you heard the other rumour
Go
that
on.
Mandelson was in number 10, literally went in, not the front entrance, right, the day before the reshuffle, and was sat for 6 hours with Morgan McSweeney? And there are people writing stories over the weekend saying they reckon that Mandelson and McSweeney arranged that reshuffle, and Starmer has to accept it. What is he, the Prime Minister or a figurehead of a ship that's sinking? Because, listen, love your thoughts as well very quickly, what Sarah and I have been talking about. 0344 499 1000. Before we let you go, because I know you're campaigning, the Unite the Kingdom march on Saturday. I honestly believe...
Yes.
I honestly believe that Rachel from Accounts must have done the mainstream media briefings. 100,000, Sarah, that's rubbish.
Yeah. It looked more like 1 million to me. But, you know, overall, the point is the country has these three issues, in my opinion. They want to stop immigration, they want to defend free speech, and they want to protect our culture and our Christianity, fundamentally. And I think that normal, decent people now are prepared to come to London with their flags and walk peacefully for a mile up to Parliament Square, because that is exactly what happened.
Oh, hold on, Sarah Pochin. Hold on. The mainstream media are reporting, and I'm not condoning this before people have a go at me, that 25 people were arrested. Even the Met Police said, and Starmer, we are not going to accept the police being attacked. Now, at the risk of being slaughtered or fired or whatever, I'm sorry, I thought the Notting Hill Carnival had nearly 500 arrests. I thought there were people with knives and drugs and people who committed sexual assault. But will the left talk about that at all? Of course they bloody well won't. It's a joke.
Of course they won't. We've been talking about banning the Notting Hill Carnival for years, and in my view, it absolutely should be banned. But this was basically a peaceful march of hundreds of thousands of people who, as I say, there is a wave now of resentment across the country. People are angry, and this is growing. And I'll tell you, Jeremy, and I've said this before, a government that defies the will of the people is a government that will fall.
Couldn't agree more. How's Wales today? You having fun campaigning?
It's very windy, and I know I look a bit windswept, but it's very windy.
I'm not saying a word. I'm being very straight because your chief of staff is quite scary, so I'm being very, very straight. But listen, I really appreciate you responding this morning, and thank you for coming on. We wanted to get a reform response to that Danny Kruger defection, and also a response about the United Kingdom. And I take absolutely your response to that tweet thing with Nigel and Christian Wakefield. Really appreciate. Hope you get back to civilization, okay? The brilliant Sarah Pochin, Reforms MP for Runcorn and Helsby, 421. We're live across the UK. This is JK on Drive, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Very quickly to the phone lines. Caroline's in London. 2 minutes, kiddo, what you got?
Hi, Jeremy. Very quickly, I went to the march.
Did you?
I've been to the poll tax. Right, one. I went to the COVID one. There was at least 2 million. I've never ever in my life seen so many people.
No, there weren't. There were 100,000 people, and they're all far-right thugs.
Oh, yeah, BBC fact-checker, that's right. There were women with prams, there were grandmothers, there were ex-servicemen. It was full of joy. There was no trouble. And for the first time, I feel a little bit of hope, because we have got to win this fight, because we've got no choice. Otherwise, our country is over. It's as simple as that.
And just very quickly, in terms of what you saw at that Unite the Kingdom march, you saw genuinely, concerned Brits doing their bit, not a bunch of racist thugs waving the flag and wearing masks.
Well, if they were racist, then so am I. I'm sorry. The Union Jack is the flag of Britain. If that's racist, what the hell is going on? It's crazy. Starmer's out, but I don't think that's necessarily a great thing because we might get David Lammy. We need Labour out, we need a new election, and we need to restart this country from the bottom up. And I just want reform to be more bolder. I don't think they're being bold enough.
I mean, what does he come out? I know. Listen, the PM today, is he PM or somebody else, condemns the use of the flag as a symbol of far-right hate and violence. The thing about it, and I have to go. The thing is, if Starmer after Southport, thank you so much, Karen. I said this before, Pete. After Southport, he stood up and he said, "I won't." And I don't want far-right off the streets in jail. Not interested. But you're not going to call millions of people far-right, Starmer. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work when you shut your brains and your ears to what is patently obvious, which is this country wants answers. Still to come on the show, political editor of The Sun. I created him. He's a legend. He's called Jack Elson. We're back in 3. I'm off for a week.
There is no route for Andy Burnham to become leader of the Labour Party.
Correct.
It's quite important to say that.
Yeah.
Whether he wants it or not, because he is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and because that role includes running the police force, he cannot double job, as it's called. So he can't be an MP and the Mayor of Greater Manchester. So he would have to make a choice. There would have to be a seat available for him to run in. He would have to win that seat. Then there would have to be a Labour Party contest. There's a lot of what-ifs involved in that sentence.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Monday afternoon, Tour Drive with JK on the home of free speech and common sense. Love your calls and your texts. 0344 400 1000. Stephen says, I live in Yorkshire and I would have been there, Jez, on Saturday. It was a bit too far away, so I watched it online all day with my wife and son. If there's a Unite the Kingdom march in the north of England, ideally Leeds, I think millions would attend. Lots of it is in the north agree just couldn't get there. Jez, I was there. I'm 72. I'm a retired chartered accountant and my training skills tell me we have a fraudster in number 10. Steve's in Cambridge. Don't knock the one in, one out system, Jez. It's working on Starmer's bloody cabinet. Jake, I've been watching the Reform UK conference. It's incredibly exciting and more good news. We've got Danny Kruger in. Reform's amazing. I can see history in the making. Our next Prime Minister will be Nigel Farage. Brad's in Cambridge. Afternoon, Jez. The Reform members who say that we shouldn't welcome ex-Tories are wrong. Reform have no experience of government. We are going to need a large number of new MPs, but we need experienced parliamentarians as well. Margaret's in Birmingham. Lovely. Starmer should go. We, the British people, can't wait to see the back of this weak, useless git. But JK, I think he will wriggle out of this Mandelson rubbish and cling on like they do. But Paula says, I'm with you and MG. He'll be gone by Christmas. We say a very good afternoon to political editor. Who'd have thought? The young man of all those years ago.
And who do I have to thank for my rise up to the top? One Mr. Jeremy Kyle.
It's very nice to see you. The amazing Jack Elston. We were already on the phone at whatever time it was this morning. Let's talk about, if we can, the big news today. Tory MP Danny Kruger sensationally quitting. I have been very honest about the fact that I voted Reform, but I also asked the questions, and I just asked Sarah Pochin there. When Christian Wakefield moved from Tory to Labour, Nigel Farage said there should be a by-election. I asked that of Sarah because today Danny Kruger has defected, whilst actually a shadow cabinet minister for the Tories, so a big moment. I thought she answered it very well. She said that the one thing that Danny Kruger said was the party that he stood for on Conservative values are not actually represented by the Tory party anymore. Reform are, whereas changing from Tory to Labour is a massive, massive difference. Good answer, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty important... I'm not disrespecting Nadine Dorris or Jake Berry or anybody like that, but this guy's in the shadow cabinet. For him to stand and say the Tory party's dead, that's pretty damning, isn't it?
And he's also a very serious thinker. And again, no disrespect to Jake Berry or Nadine Dorries, but Danny Kruger's actually got skin in the game. He's currently an elected MP. He was serving as one of Kemi Badenoch's shadow ministers. Probably felt a bit sidelined because he didn't get elevated to the shadow cabinet. He was sort of in the junior ranks of the Tory fold. Many people thought he should be inside because he is just a big brain in the party, one of their best communicators. But, you know, I think that it is going to be a massive blow to Kemi Badenoch because he is someone that is a current Tory MP. So he's actually their first person who has gone from being a sitting Tory MP. Lee Anderson was obviously an independent at the time when he crossed the floor. Danny Kruger is thinking...
Will he have to walk across the floor in front of everybody?
Well, no, because they sit on the same side. They have the opposition side. So there's the government and then Reform sort of sit just to the left of the Conservatives. But it is a massive blow. Danny Kruger represents sort of the traditional small C Conservatives. He was head of what were called the New Conservatives under Boris Johnson. So this was sort of the 2019ers.
He headed up Jenrick's campaign, didn't he?
He headed up Jenrick's campaign, and I think the most interesting question now will be, what does Robert Jenrick do? Yeah. Because there is a growing sense in the Tory fold that Kemi Badenoch is struggling to turn things around. People thinking we have buyer's remorse about not electing Robert Jenrick last time round.
Too late.
It was interesting that Danny Kruger said in this press conference that actually he doesn't think that even Robert Jenrick, a good friend and ally of his, can turn this ship around at the moment. But, you know, Kemi Badenoch came out today and said, listen, if you don't like our policies, then you can leave. I do think there is a bit of a contradiction here because clearly there isn't much, I don't think, it'd be interesting to get what you will think about this, there isn't much, I don't think, in terms of policy which really divides the Tories and Reform. In terms of what they're saying.
I'll jump straight in. And you know, I did the Reform Party conference last weekend, and I spent a bit of time with Nigel. The difference for me as a voter is simply this, or a broadcaster. Not only do I feel like he talks about the things that people are concerned about, he hasn't spent 12 months saying, I'm trying to look at where we could have won more seats. He reads the room. I think why he is leading so well is because people believe, Jack, that he's got either the cojones or the kamikaze approach, whatever you want, to actually do what he says he's going to do. And we all look enviously, whether we hate the orange man baby or not, all of us look at some part of America, right, and go, what he's done, what he said, whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, he's done exactly what he said. I was reading the other day, in America, Last January, February, March, 380,000 people got in 12 weeks on the southern border. January, February, March, since Trump got in?
Yep, hardly anything.
500,
Hardly any.
So love him or loathe him, and half of America loathes him, he's doing. I think we crave that, so many of us in this country. I think we are fed up with people who pretend to be squeaky clean and perfect, and they have to resign, and it's jobs for them. I just think that the United Kingdom is going to go. He ran a successful business. He's put his neck above the thing. Let's give him a go. Could it be any worse? That's what I think.
I totally agree. I think that is the main difference. It's that authenticity and the actual people buy into your project. Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage could basically say the exact same thing.
I don't get what her gut says. I get the feeling like with Starmer, well, probably Starmer's a different subject, that it's all about focus groups. I haven't heard her go, do you know what? I see her read at Prime Minister's Question Times. I see her read all the time, and I think, yeah, that sounds very good and well prepared, but it doesn't. Your word is great. It's not organic, it's not authentic, it's not real.
And people want their leaders to reflect the angers and frustrations which they share. And that is what Nigel is just absolutely adept at doing. And you take into the fact that he doesn't have the 14 years of baggage, because it is very easy for Kemi Badenoch, who sat around the cabinet table, to say, we're going to get a grip of migration, we're going to solve the economy. But actually, and to her, you know, if I was going to put her side across, she would say that she wasn't the leader. And if you're the leader, often you sort of have to sort of go along.
Could have resigned, Jenrick did.
And this is the point, isn't it? And what is Jenrick going to do now? Because that is the crucial question. Does he make a move against Kemi Badenoch? At the moment, he is saying that he is going to be staying inside the tent. But if more and more Tories go, then there's going to be massive pressure on him to sort of be the standard bearer.
Can you ever see him going to reform?
I don't think that he'll go to reform, because I think there's too much bad blood between them. Him and Nigel Farage have, you know, sparred quite a lot. But I think that, you know, there will be a time that maybe come, and lots of Tories that are privately telling me, when this happened, by the way, phone blowing up with Tory MPs, both past and present, saying that if the May election go bad for the Tories, similarly, if they go bad for Keir Starmer, then both of them will be in real trouble. And you can see a situation where the Tories are pushed into fourth in both Scotland and Wales.
Who was it the other day? I can't remember, my brain's not that good. And he said, it was a Tory, and he basically, sorry, it sounds very disrespectful, but he said to me, you know, and if it continues to go bad for Starmer in the May elections, they'll be down to 15%. And they went, and you'll be second on 18. That's not good, is it?
I think that's optimistic, if I'm honest.
Yeah, listen, and let's talk about stuff. I love your thoughts on what Jack said. 0344 499 1000. You are involved in the murky politics, you know, the murkiness of politics. But honestly, I have listened to MG tell me that this guy is rubbish and can't succeed, and I bought into that. This Mandelson thing, right? I've heard that McSweeney was close to Mandelson, one of his protégés, and he even wanted to make him Foreign Secretary. I read over the weekend that while Starmer was doing whatever, Mandelson's in days before the reshuffle with McSweeney for hours. What has Peter Mandelson got on them all? Does he know where the bodies are buried? Because I don't understand how anybody... And now today Starmer's going, well, I wouldn't have given him a job if I'd known. Isn't it your job as Prime Minister to know?
Well, two things going on here. Why was he appointed in the first place? It seems to me that Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney are obsessed with Tony Blair and the Blairites, obsessed with them. They see them as the glory days of Labour government, proper winners. Tony Blair won 3 general elections, and if you look at who he's put into his top team, it's absolutely stuffed from retreads from the new Labour era, Peter Mandelson being one of them, no matter all of the baggage that comes with that, because let's not forget, Tony Blair sacked Peter Mandelson twice in different forms of sleaze scandals.
Likes the pound note, doesn't he?
Different forms of sleaze scandals.
Yeah.
It was then known and well documented, his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which continued after Jeffrey Epstein's conviction. I think, to Peter Mandelson's credit, he did manage to actually forge a pretty good relationship with Donald Trump and managed to make Keir Starmer and Donald Trump have quite a good relationship in his time there. But the question comes down now to Keir Starmer's judgment, because when he stood at the dispatch box of the House of Commons on Wednesday and said that Peter Mandelson retained his full confidence, he knew the emails that Peter Mandelson had sent to Jeffrey Epstein were being put into the public domain. And so why on earth, when he knew that these emails were going to come out, did he not think, hang on a minute, before I go and tell the country that I'm sticking by this man, who we know already has a pretty murky relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, maybe I should find out from the Foreign Office, which had these emails, what exactly is in them.
Well,
and it's that astounding lack of curiosity.
I'll put curiosity or experience or just intelligence. I'll put this to you as the political edge of the sun, right? Labour MPs are saying gone by May. Would it not be fair to say that a man who has stood up on numerous occasions, and quite rightly it turns out, said, you know, to Boris Johnson, you lied about this, if he knew he misled the House of Commons? Dan Hodges wrote, and I know I keep throwing it out there, but Dan Hodges wrote this morning, there's two options left, right? Either you fall on your sword for misleading Parliament,
or you chuck an advisor under the bus,
or you sack Morgan McSweeney. I think he'd be scared to sack Morgan McSweeney because they're all tied in together for the very reasons that you say.
Yeah, and I think that Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer's fates politically are fairly intertwined. Morgan McSweeney is probably the driving force in government who's given Keir Starmer probably an ideological North Star as such. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, what you say in the House of Commons, and I know that it might seem trivial to the outside, but it really matters in terms of misleading the House. And this is the point that Dan Hodges made. And you also know that if the shoe was on the other foot, and that if Keir Starmer was leading the opposition and someone like, let's say, Boris Johnson had misled the House of Commons, he would be going hammer and tong. That's exactly what did happen, obviously, under Boris Johnson. The fact that he was economical with the truth in Parliament was ultimately his undoing. And so you can see a situation now where there's runs and runs and runs. Just while we came on air, Emily Thornberry, who's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, absolutely no fan of Keir Starmer whatsoever, is using her committee to demand a formal hearing about the appointment of Peter Mandelson in the first place. And so Keir Starmer now is facing having to answer more questions about this, all in the week of Donald Trump's state visit. And, we know the problems he's having.
And this afternoon, 2 hours ago, a senior Starmer aide resigns over sexual and lurid comments about Diane Abbott. I'll keep really quiet. There must have been an interesting conversation. I mean, to me, they are out to get him. Labour MPs saying, unless by May, you change it. The guy's judgment is completely and utterly under the cosh, and it's understandable. And who'd have thought, like a year ago, we were saying 180 seats, 170-something seats. Yeah. I mean, he's messed it up. But I did say at the time, if you invite, I remember saying it to you, if you invite so many people into your tent, you spend all your time trying to please all the people, you end up on your arse. There's no way you can make it work.
But I think that all governments have scandal. Right, totally. It is one, how you react to them, I think, which really sort of sets the tone, but also they're not excusable, but they will be less damaging if you weren't so vulnerable with a massive flop in the polls. Yeah. The fact that migration is ripping.
Oh, we
the
should
fact that the economy
we
is
should
absolutely
say,
shot.
Let's be fair to Labour. Today is the start of the first Channel migrants being returned to France. The one in, one out that turned into 2,500 in and one out. I don't understand. See, that's how much has been going on. Just very quickly, because I know you're very busy. Andy Burnham, lots of the press over the weekend that the Mayor of Manchester has set up a sort of policy unit. He's backing Lucy Powell and the deputy leadership because, she's his person, and that he's going to get into the Commons and take Starmer on.
So the interesting this one, I think Andy Burnham likes being this sort of king over the water. Yeah. Who, potentially could come back and save the Labour Party. I mean, first of all, he needs to find a seat, and one, there's no vacancy, and he needs to find a seat which Reform wouldn't win in the by-election.
And they would in Manchester, by the way, right now. That's a real thing.
And this is the problem, isn't it? He would have to stand in Manchester, obviously, because he's the mayor of Manchester.
He's not going to win in Manchester.
But if you look at some of the polling up there, Nigel Farage could beat him up there. And so I don't think at the moment it would be really in his interest to come down to Westminster and try and fight a seat in Manchester.
Do you see Starmer lasting?
I don't know, because the Parliamentary Labour Party notoriously are very reluctant in ousting their leaders. Labour MPs have never in their history got rid of a Labour leader. They've always fallen at elections or whatever. And so I think that while there is a lot of commentary and a lot of anger amongst large parts of the Parliamentary Party, don't underestimate that a lot of the new intake especially are still quite loyal to him. Yep. And it would take a large bar, I think, to really get that. And so at the moment, I'm still not convinced.
Until they get to the point in 2 years' time or a year's time when they look at the polls and they go, I'm going to lose my job.
But there's also no one really in the Parliamentary Party currently waiting in the wings. There's no sort of big
just said to me, we get
figure.
David Lammy. Are you joking?
I'm not sure David Lammy would go for it. I'm not sure they would accept David Lammy. But again, there's not a real figure at the moment. I mean, Wes Streeting is probably the most obvious, but the membership aren't too keen on him because, rightly, he's gone to war with the unions, and all the Labour members, they love unions. And so there's not really anyone at the moment who I think fits the bill.
Mate, great to have you on, and I really appreciate it. Interesting times, isn't it?
Very interesting
times, visit as well. That'll be interesting with Donald. You'd be covering that, won't you?
Yeah, I'm off to Chequers on Thursday for the press conference.
I've got to stay late and work on your ex-colleague Harry Cole's American show because of all of that. He's wafting it around London.
Yeah, he is. I've just seen him. Yeah.
Good man. Listen, the amazing Jack Elson, thank you very much indeed. Political editor of The Sun. 20 to 5, 0344 499 1000. Next, friend of the show, Peter Blexley, here to answer the question, should frontline officers be given guns? Back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. You were Talk Drive. My name's Jeremy Carr. We're live across the UK. 4:45. So much to cram in this hour, this show. 0344 499 1000. This man is so dedicated to his craft that he's on holiday and he's got his shorts on, but he hasn't got a top, his own T-shirt on. Peter Blexley, hello.
Good afternoon to you.
Now, I reckon that if you stood up, you've got swimming shorts on. What do you reckon?
No comment, Your Honour.
There you go. Well done. Listen, appreciate your time. Just a quickie, me old son. This story today in the Telegraph. Should we give guns to frontline officers? This is a secret Metropolitan Police report. I found myself rather cynically saying, no, could you just go and sort some crime out? But maybe I'm old. What do you make of it, Pete?
The answer to that question is an emphatic no. There is no need for it. Whilst the streets are blighted by rampant crime, fortunately, it's not criminals always carrying guns. Secondly, frontline police officers themselves do not want to carry guns. What they all should have is a taser, most definitely, and they should have better safety training.
It's interesting.
They shouldn't be afraid of their own shadows.
When I was in Manchester working, one of the guys that worked for us, his son was in the armed response unit in Manchester, and they were forever fearful that if they ever had to draw their weapon, they would be under investigation and put on, you know, suspension for months and months and years because the way the country has changed. But I guess the other side to that argument would be people who say it seems to be that you know, criminals are taking over our streets. But we talk about this a lot. It's how policing is done, isn't it? It seems to have changed.
Yes, it is. Phone snatchers do not need shooting. No. Shoplifters do not need shooting. Armed robbers sometimes do. And let's remember, look what happened to Sergeant Martin Blake, previously known as NX121, who stood trial for murder because he quite rightfully and justifiably shot that piece of garbage, Chris Cabba, dead, thereby doing the nation a great favour. This huge credit to the Telegraph for laying their hands on the report. It makes me wonder who wrote this, how out of touch with the organisation they work for could they possibly be. It's astonishing.
Great show. This is Robert Taylor, an ex-copper. He says all frontline officers should be armed with non-lethal firearms, and I'm not talking about tasers. That's interesting. Pete, can I ask you, I know you're away and we appreciate your time. You're very much part of the family here. Apparently, according to the mainstream media, the Unite the Kingdom march on Saturday, there were only 100,000 people. I don't know if Rachel from accounts was adding up, but that I would have thought it was 10 times that. And then this appalling story, which, by the way, I don't condone, but 25 police officers, well, 25 people were attacked and police officers were arrested, and a few police officers were attacked, which I repeat, I don't condone. Not to mention of the 500 arrests at Notting Hill Carnival. These people can't get away with lying anymore, can they? They really can't get away with lying. I'm not condoning some of what we're seeing on the screen, but there were hundreds of thousands of peaceful protesters, and I don't believe this Prime Minister can any more, in any way, call all those people far-right thugs, can he?
Well, let's just talk about that lamentable Prime Minister of ours for a moment, if we may. Firstly, if you assault a police officer, you're an idiot. Get out of my...
Oh, is he gone? Oh, it's frozen. Oh, mate. Just try him back one more time. 0344 499 1000. Jezza. We got him back. Let's go back live. I'm not telling you where. Pete, you back?
Yes, I'm here. Haven't gone anywhere.
Slight satellite delay. What were you saying? Nobody should attack police officers. Completely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. You're an idiot if you do that. Just get out of my way. I don't want anything to do with you. But there were 97 police officers assaulted at the Notting Hill Carnival. Did we hear Starmer saying how unacceptable assaults on police officers were then? No, not a word, because there's cultural sensitivities around the Notting Hill Carnival. But the minute something happens at a march, which was overwhelmingly peaceful, delightful and full of patriots, Starmer gets on the front foot. typical of this pathetic Prime Minister.
Don't think I know you're abroad, but there's much being said that this guy is really, really under the cosh, could have misled Parliament, isn't really running the government. Everybody realises he's got a bad judgment in almost everything. By the time you come back, he could be toast, Peter. You'd be delighted about that, wouldn't you?
And I'm back on Wednesday. Nothing would brighten my day more than to pick up my phone after we've landed, get reconnected and find out that he's gone. Only, of course, to be replaced by another appalling Labourite.
Listen, enjoy wherever you are with the delightful Mrs B. We appreciate your time. Sorry to disturb you. The legend that is Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. 10 to 5, we're live across the UK. Amongst all the madness, yesterday there was a shocking story. Somebody actually I knew very well, passed at 46, legend Ricky Hatton. Just an amazing guy, an amazing boxer who had his troubles. After the break, we'll play tribute. We've got Spencer Oliver, former European champion, next on Talk Drive.
I never wanted to carry a gun. I did carry a gun for a little while, but I didn't really want to do it routinely, and I didn't want my officers to carry it routinely because I never actually felt that the risk was so great that they needed to do that. We, as you say, we've got highly trained officers in the UK. We can give them more training because there's fewer of them. But we're now in a situation where times have changed, and I think officers do feel unable to be able to protect themselves in serious situations.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 7 minutes to 5. Jackie from Shropshire. My dad will be horrified just at what's happening now. He was at Dunkirk and Arnhem, fought for his country from the beginning to the end of the Second World War, always voted Labour, very different Labour then than now. Starmer is a disgrace, showing our country up to the rest of the world. Get him out. It's quite interesting, actually. I have to say, somebody just said, can you imagine, right, like, the final nail could possibly be that Nigel Farage, who has been uninvited to the King's banquet when Trump's state visit starts tomorrow and goes on until Thursday. Nigel Farage completely spurned by Sir Keir Starmer. Somebody just texted and put, be great if he got out the beast with Trump or off Air Force One, wouldn't it? That would just about finish Starmer off. Listen, it's 6 minutes to 5. Amongst all the madness, there was some really sad news yesterday. Somebody who I knew very well, actually, Ricky Hatton, sadly passed away at the age of 46, a working-class hero to many and an incredible, incredible man who had many demons. Delighted to be joined now by former European champion Spencer Oliver. Spencer, thanks for joining me, kiddo. How are you?
Yeah, pleasure joining you, Jeremy. Yeah, really, really good, mate. Tragic news about Ricky. Obviously, we heard the news yesterday early afternoon, and yeah, tragic circumstances.
Without going into detail, we talked earlier on the lift, and listen, somebody who used to work for me worked with Ricky, and there were no doubt there were demons. But I think the thing about anything this sad is that you always wonder, could I have made that phone call? And you hate the fact that the kid was obviously struggling. But let's in a world of quite misery, let's just from a boxing point of view put into perspective how much he achieved, Spencer, from where he came from, mate.
Absolutely, Jeremy. I think, look, let's celebrate his career, that's for sure. I mean, look, going back as a young kid, Ricky Hatton was a fantastic fighter. Always was as an amateur. He won the ABAs at, you know, just turned 18 years of age, and he went on to have a glittering professional career. You know, winning world titles in 2 different weight divisions. I remember him beating Jonathan Faxton actually for the British title, where he picked up a horrendous cut over his right eye and it needed 45 stitches. And from then on, you go, that was the moulding of him. That was the making of him. You see that the potential for him to go on and win world honours. And he only ever lost to the best. Out of 48 fights, 45 victories, only 3 of those defeats, and that was to the great Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. So you go, this kid belonged up there with the best, and you know he was a hard grafter. And what we loved about this guy, Jeremy, was, you said it earlier, you know, he was a working class kid, just loved nothing more than going for a pint down his local working man social club, even when he hit the heights that he did. You know, he never.
I have to say, he was one of those few people that we meet, right, who didn't change. And you know, I met him in Manchester all those years ago when I was doing the other show, and look, he'd come along, we'd go out, and he was, the thing is, you don't realise, you read stuff, right? I read a really sad quote today, and it is relevant, and he said that when he lost to Pacquiao, and you'd be able to answer this as a boxer, inside 2 rounds, when he was at the height of his powers, he said, I just didn't want to ever come out of the house again. I thought I'd let down the 40,000 that had travelled to see me. I thought I could never show my face again. And that's really sad, because he was a hero, and to many he was an inspiration. He became a manager, his son became a boxer as well. And it's a question, isn't it, for sportsmen? I mean, you yourself had it. When you reach the height and then it's taken from, it's a difficult moment, right?
It certainly is. You know, the support is not there. You've got to remember where Ricky Hatton come from. You know, he's a working class kid that come from an estate in Manchester. You go, all of a sudden he becomes this massive public figure. Yeah. And that brings pressure when things like that happen. And Ricky struggled to deal with that sort of stuff. Like you say, 40,000 fans. No other British fighter has ever done that. Yeah. You know, I don't think no other British fighter ever will do that. But, you know, I think the public loved him because he was the kid next door. And I think that they related to that, and he never changed, and they loved that as well. And, like, you know, when he boxed 2005, which was his crowning moment, I think, when he boxed Costa at the MEN Arena, I actually picked Frank Bruno up on the way. We was both working for Sky TV. I picked Frank Bruno up from Champneys, where he was staying at the time. We travelled up there and we said, you know what? Ricky's a great young fighter, but he's got no chance here. Yeah, he's going in against a guy, Costa, who was pound for pound #1 in the world at the time. And you go, but it's going to be a tough night for poor young Ricky. But he'll be able to come again. And he proved all the doubters, including us, wrong. And what a night that was. And there was 20,000 fans in there. And you know what? Them 20,000 fans, Ricky probably had a pint with most of them guys, like, because that was the guy that he was. He was just one of them kids, but he struggled with life after boxing, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, without looking, you know, because I'm happy to talk about his successes, but it is a thing for many professional sportsmen and people actually in the media, people in films, television, whatever. You're there. It's such a shallow existence, and then it's gone. And your real friends and the people that you've known are the ones you have to hold on to, aren't they?
Absolutely. Listen, we've all experienced it at some point in our careers. You know, you have your highs and you have your lows. It's a real roller coaster. And, you know, I go back to sort of like when I was boxing, How many people in my life today are in my life that was there when I was boxing? None. The answer's zero. You know, and that's the truth of it.
I say that about what I used to do, and I could answer that less than that hand, genuine.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we know one of them's our mutual mate. Don't hit him too hard later, by the way.
100%, absolutely, yeah. And you know what? It's like that mutual mate I'm training later, by the way. As
I
well.
know, don't hit him too hard. Honest to Paul. But listen, on a serious note, because I've heard all the eulogies all day, and I understand that. He was a top bloke. He had his demons. It's really sad he's no longer with us. But from whence he came, what a fantastic fighter and role model, Spencer. Sum him up.
He really was, mate. Like I say, like watching him beat John Faxton for the British title, you know, way back when he picked up a horrendous cut and he went on to achieve unbelievable things, winning world titles in 2 different weights, and that memorable night that we just talked about with Kostya 2005 for me was his crowning moment. Was the night. I've never been to an atmosphere in any boxing arena or boxing stadium like we got that night. It was absolutely fantastic, and to sum Ricky Hatton up, really, he was not just a British boxing legend, but he's an iconic figure, and he's a fantastic man, a fantastic human being.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 2 minutes past 5, live across the UK. Thank you to Spencer Oliver, former European champion. Great words there about the late, great Ricky Hatton. You know me, I try and do this show to the best of my ability. I'm sure other people are smoother. Can I just say something which will undoubtedly cause certain people to think I'm being harsh? I've got 6 kids. That Constance Martin, and I don't know what the name of her partner was, something Mark Gordon. Are you telling me for going on the run and a baby died as a result of their actions, 14 years is enough? Sorry, I can't. I sit here and I go, so Lucy Connolly got 3 years for some hurty words, right? Which were not right, I accept that. You've killed a baby and you got 14 years and you'll be out in 7. The world's gone flipping mad, mate. 3 minutes past. Just stuff like that. When you think about Ricky Hatton and you think about torment and you think... You took your baby out and it died because you just neglected it and you got 14 years. What an absolute joke of a country we live in. 0344 499 1000. Hello to Jeff, who says, Jeremy, we don't want professional politicians in reform. We want people that care about the country and its people. Gareth Crook says, if we can't use the flag of our country for a rally, why can't we? We want our country back. Afternoon, Jez says Scottish. I don't know if that's the entire Scottish population or somebody who calls himself Scottish, which is slightly big-headed because he... Never mind. He says, afternoon, Jez. Once these migrants in the hotels find out they're getting deported, they will just walk out of the door and disappear. Very interesting. So, the big news stories of the day. I think you should know by now on the way home what's going on. Danny Kruger, Shadow, this is important, Shadow Minister in Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Cabinet, has walked. He's defected to Deform, saying, and I quote, the Tory party is dead. Have we got that clip? This is a sitting Tory MP, different from a Nadine Dorries or a Jake Berry, no disrespect to them. This is a sitting MP, right, who was in the shadow, part of the shadow cabinet government, who is basically saying that Reform's policies are now more akin to what I got elected on, conservatism. The Tory party is dead. Danny Kruger earlier, have a listen.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left. But I am not despondent, because conservatism is not over. It's never been needed more, and actually it's never been more vibrant. Because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative.
We say a very good afternoon to former Conservative government advisor and good friend. I haven't seen him for a while, in Tweed, no doubt. James Price, JP, good afternoon. So, no, we've got Scottish tartan on today. How are we?
Well, as you just invited someone called Scottish, I thought I'd quickly go and change.
Well
you
done.
can't see the kilt, of course.
How very north of the border of you. On a serious note, we had Sarah Poach an hour ago. We love having you on the show. I understand, in fact, I spent time with Nigel Farage at the party conference last week, and I was very straight with him, as I've been with everybody. I don't want the Reform Party to become a party of disaffected Tories who basically were part of something that didn't work out. Now, the criticism could be levelled at, say, a Nadine Dorries, at a Jake Berry. This is a sitting MP. This is part of the shadow cabinet. This is Danny Kruger. You know, he was the campaign manager for Robert Jenrick's leadership campaign. So on that side of the party, he was a speechwriter for David Cameron and is probably one of the one of the thinkers in the Tory party. I think this is very, very relevant, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely devastating for my party. I know Danny a little bit. I think he's a very good man, very smart man, a very thoughtful man. He may be best known to people, actually, as a fun fact, as the son of Prue Leith off the Great British Bake Off, but also for all those who watch talkTV who are big aficionados of politics. He has led the opposition to this ghastly assisted dying bill in Parliament, and he has given more scrutiny to this than I think a bill has received in the House of Commons for a very long time. So he's a thoughtful, caring, very smart person, and I think it's therefore a big loss for the Conservative Party, a big gain for Reform, and hopefully it will augur Reform taking, without sounding too silly about this, kind of political philosophy more seriously. Because when issues come along for any party, you need to have a kind of set of first principles that have been properly thought through that will help you react when these stories come along. And Danny Kruger is someone who could provide any party with that. So I think it's a big, big, big move.
Interesting. When I put this to Sarah Poach, I have to say I thought the answer was fantastic. I asked her earlier, I said that when Christian Wakefield walked from the Tories to Labour and crossed the floor, Nigel tweeted and said there should be a by-election. Nothing so much as mentioned about that today. And what Sarah said was there is a massive difference between changing from the philosophy of conservatism to a socialist doctrine. What Danny Kruger made a point today in saying repeatedly was the party that I was elected, the principles that I was elected on have been betrayed and are now more akin with Reform, and that's why I am joining Reform. But love it or loathe it, the truth is, I mean, Farage has asked him to set up and head the party's new department for preparing for government. I think he is a major, major loss to the Tory party. And I just say, I don't think it should become a party of waifs and strays reform, because people have failed miserably over the years. But I think he's is it sour grapes that he wasn't, one of the bigger names in her shadow cabinet? Is it the promise of a job if he gets there? I don't know. But he's a thinker and he's a good man, isn't he?
He is definitely a good man, I think, first and foremost. And I can tell you, having been in Westminster for too long, they're not exactly in overabundance, having good, decent, moral...
Were you shocked? Did you have any inclination at all?
I had no inclination at all. I was gobsmacked by it. The fact, as you say, that he led Robert Jenrick's campaign as well, that's a very big thing. Maybe he thinks that the Conservative Party is not... in a position to get someone like Rob Jenrick in a higher leadership position, say a higher leadership position, be careful what I say there, and therefore that he thinks that he's got more opportunity to sculpt and shape the philosophy of the Reform Party, he's got a chance to hire a lot more people or select a lot more people for Parliament next time round to hopefully win elections than the Conservative Party, which is sort of still torn with a lot of people in it who are very sound and a lot of people who are perhaps not as sound as I would like them, with sound being a shorthand for, patriotic, sensible, free enterprise Conservatives with a small C and a big C.
It's interesting. Kemi Badenoch earlier quoted as, if you don't agree with what we believe in, you should definitely go. The problem with that for me is very, very simple, and I will be accused of being unfair. I praised her the other day in Prime Minister's Questions. I still don't know what the bloody hell she stands for, because she spent 14 months having a review into why they were battered. And I've said it for months, that the British people... they're listening to Nigel Farage because Nigel Farage seems to read the room and has his finger on the pulse. We've got a Prime Minister, we'll talk about him in a minute, who doesn't seem to be in control of anything, least of all himself. And we've got a leader of an opposition who spends her entire time, it seems to me, and you would know more, not ever speaking authentically or organically from the heart, waiting to see a reaction or this or that. And I have this great story from when I was talking to Nigel last weekend, and they said, they're going to come for you. And he said, journalists asked me this morning, if I like to drink, smoke, gamble and womanize. He said, I've done all of them in my life, OK? But I'm not going to stand here and pretend to be squeaky clean, because I think the British people have moved on from that. Oh, I'm squeaky clean and then I get found out. No, I've got a plan. Vote for me and I promise you I'll do my utmost to see it through. But when somebody like Danny Kruger thinks that that is more believable than a boss who hasn't made up her mind where she's going, I think it's a massively important day. As much, by the way, for the Tories and their demise as Reform.
I agree that the idea of being leader of the opposition and going on the telly, as Kemi did, and said, if you don't like it, you're very welcome to leave. Well, I suppose that's technically accurate, but I don't think it's the way that politicians should go around trying to win hearts and minds. He might not be the soundest person in the world necessarily, but Jeremy Hunt, I heard a story about Jeremy Hunt where he was at an event and there was a very, very robust right-wing economics journalist who was there. And now Hunt could have just avoided this person because, they'd been writing some fairly mean and disobliging things about Hunt. And he went straight over to her and he said, listen, my job is to make you happy. If I can win you over, then I know I've done something right and I'm going to keep doing that. And I thought, God, that is exactly what a politician should say and how they should behave. I think that Farage is quite good at doing that. Rob Jenrick good at that, and other politicians through time have been good at doing that. But the idea of, if you don't like it, you can leave. Well, don't be surprised if some people like Danny Kruger do that. I think it's a real shame.
Let's talk about the Prime Minister if we can.
Do we have to?
Well, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, MG's been saying for 6 months he'll be gone. I now firmly believe Mike Graham is spot on. We heard so many things over the weekend. I was talking to Jack Elsom about this half an hour ago. And Mandelson. Anybody with a brain cell can see that this bloke's obsessed with one thing and one thing only, which is money. You look at Starmer saying, I wasn't aware. You read the Dan Hodges article in the Mail when he says categorically, either you've misled Parliament, in which you need to fall on your sword, in which case, or you need to sack your Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. But McSweeney's tied into Mandelson and Blair. And you get an image over the weekend, James, that despite all these protestations about there being no cronyism, I'm going to lead clean politics, that this guy is either inept uninformed. I mean, how do you not check that Peter Mandelson, there isn't, well, basically more skeletons in the cupboard? We heard over the weekend that Mandelson was in 10 Downing Street, right, with McSweeney for hours working on the reshuffle, and Starmer was nowhere to be seen. We heard that McSweeney wanted, are you ready for this? I'm sure you've heard it, to make Mandelson the Foreign Secretary, a.k.a. David Cameron. And this is extraordinary. And Starmer, I think Starmer, I genuinely believe, as do Labour MPs, that if he doesn't, in May, when they get slaughtered at the polls, and they will, I think he's gone. I think he's toast. I think it's the first time in history. And I don't, all those people who go, oh, the Labour Party don't do that, they will.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute shambles. Look, regular viewers and listeners know I try to be one of the most partisan, anti-socialist people in the country. And even
I think you achieve it very well.
And anti-communist, I should say, although I would say that socialism and communism are the same thing.
Yes.
I'm pretty biased. Even I didn't think they would be this bad. I've said this to you before. Even I didn't think that they would put in an anti-homelessness minister who makes people homeless, an anti-corruption minister who gets done in a corruption scandal in Bangladesh, an MP, was it Hookham or someone who actually went punched someone in the face? Sorry, not just a person, a constituent in the face. You know, and the list of scandals goes on.
And a housing minister who didn't pay enough tax.
Oh, yeah, we forgot about Angela Rayner, God love her. And now you've got someone like Mandelson. And it's nice at least that Keir Starmer gets to take part in that sacred tradition for all Labour prime ministers to have to sack Peter Mandelson, right? It's like a rite of passage.
But I think this will come back and bite him on the backside. And one thing that all of those people have, and I know I mention it, so please don't have a go at me, but it was really interesting. I told the story last week about a KC who worked for me, and he's a defamation KC, and he was saying that he deals to me some months ago on all parties. Have I told you this story? And he said, I deal with Labour and Tory. And I went, what's the difference? He says, very simple. The Tories, in the end, are into rent boys and cocaine. And you'll laugh. But he said, every single Labour scandal comes down to one thing and one thing only. Money, money, money.
Yeah, you know why
money.
This is, right? The Tory scandals were always sex scandals and the Labour scandals were money scandals, because that's what those people didn't have when they were younger.
Very good. All the Tory boys didn't have rent boys and cocaine when they were growing up. Do you genuinely, I mean, we've also heard today one of Keir Starmer's top aides, Paul Ovenden, has reportedly resigned after making, this is extraordinary, sexually explicit comments about Diane Abbott. I don't want to, I'll get into trouble. How do you, yeah. There's strong support amongst Labour rebels for Andy Burnham. I don't think he's got a chance of winning a seat in Manchester. I'm with Jack Elsom. I think Reform will wipe his backside in Manchester. I think he's slightly hamstrung. But can he recover? Because I don't think he can, but you'd know more than me.
No, I think you're right. I think there are these moments where the narrative gets set and people start to realise that this person just doesn't have the political skills to get out of it. I mean, Boris managed to do it God knows how many times, and it even got him, and he was the great Houdini for these things. And Starmer is no Boris in any sense of the word. But Starmer, I think, just doesn't understand fundamentally what he's doing in that role. This is a guy who was meant to be Ed Miliband's Attorney General, if Ed Miliband had won in 2015, right? You get the Director of Public Prosecutions, you can go and be Attorney General for a bit, go off to the Lords, fine, easy. He's found himself kind of in that blinking way of his, accidentally winning the general election last year and realising that neither he nor anybody else have a Scooby what they're doing there. When you don't have that, goes back to what we're saying about Danny Kruger and Reform. You need to have a reason why we're there. Margaret Thatcher had Friedrich Hayek, and she slammed the book, The Constitution of Liberty, down on the cabinet desk and said, this is what we believe. What does Starmer believe? Well, there's absolutely nothing there. The man says he doesn't even have a favourite book, let alone one he wants to use as a lodestar for leading the country. And then you surround yourself by these clowns, these people making disgusting jokes about Diane Abbott. Peter Mandelson, a confirmed friend of, I think the Spectator describes him as being nonce adjacent in a sketch by Madeline Grant, which was superb. And, you know, these are the kind of people we're sending off to go and deal with the Americans. And as Alex Burghardt, the shadow chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, one of the top people in the Conservative Party, echoed the Watergate scandal with Mandelson and with Morgan McSweeney and with Keir Starmer. What did the Prime Minister know, and when did he know it? I think that Morgan McSweeney will be gone by the end of the week at this rate if it keeps going with these things that are going on.
But you get rid of him, and then you're taking on all the Blairites and his specific. Well, listen, I've got no sympathy for the bloke at all. One thing I want to say before you go, of course, the state visit comes up on this week with Trump, and never could there be a more embarrassing time. Can I talk to you about Saturday? You live in London, right?
Yep.
Did you
for my sins?
Did you go? Did you get involved in the Unite the Kingdom march? Did you? Because I'm really confused. I wasn't around London, but I'm told that only the mainstream media said that only 100,000 people turned up. But everybody that's rung this station and went said it was nearer a million. Apparently, the Met Police have come out and quite shocked that 25 people were arrested, whereas not one mention is made of Notting Hill, where 500 people were arrested for drugs and knives and, sexual assaults. I'm not condoning the 25, but to me, in my humble way, it's not going to stick anymore for Starmer to say, you're all far-right thugs. It's not going to stick. No, there will always be those people, but the majority, I would say, the blindingly massive majority of people there on Saturday just want their country back and will proudly marching and saying enough is enough.
Yeah, absolutely right. I wasn't here. Fortunately, I was at a wedding out of town, and therefore I wasn't able to go along. And they've been tempted to with my stash of Union Jacks and St George's Crosses and Stars and Stripes, which
not really as many as Yvette Cooper's got round her shed. Stop being gobby.
God, if you believe that one, I've got a flag to sell you. But I think that the crucial bit about that, exactly as you say, the hypocrisy of the 25 people, and we have to do the usual dance, right, where even though it should be bleedingly obvious for people like you and I that we abhor anybody attacking a police officer, Absolutely. We have to then say the caveat first. That's obviously wrong. Yes, of course it is. But I think your comparison with the Notting Hill Carnival is great. They had the police, pre-arrested, which is quite dodgy itself, hundreds of people. There were still loads of stabbings. Last year there were loads of murders. There were fewer murders this year because they put up even more metal detectors and stop and search and all the rest of it. When you have this many people who are not that used to going into London, actually it seems like a pretty wonderful demonstration. The thing I think it was missing, and I tried to see some of the speeches afterwards on the stage to see what was going on, is there isn't a large level of coherence. There is this sort of inchoate feeling of we want our country back and we want this stuff to stop, but there isn't a lot of kind of meat on the bones of it, which is why I think the Reform Party and the Conservative Party, Danny Kruger's got a big job for one of them now, have got this job to try and give people the language they need to help them express the very legitimate things that they're feeling. Because you look at footage from previous decades and this country doesn't feel the same, and it's not anything to do with skin colour or anything like that at all. It's a sense that, my wife this morning was on the tube and a pregnant lady gets on, and none of the blokes there, who all looked like they'd only been in the country quite recently, none of them bothered to get up and give her seat, so Mrs P gave her a seat. That would not have happened.
Let me tell you, we don't prepare this. My old man, God rest his soul, right, and he died 3 years ago. The saddest thing that ever happened to him was exactly the same thing. And I remember him saying to me, I don't know what's become of this country, so I'll honour him by telling this story. He worked for the Queen Mother all those years, and it was about 3 weeks before he finished, so I'm going to say 20-something years ago now. And he was on the usual, about to get off a Green Park, walk down the side of the Ritz, through Milkmaid's Passage to Clarence House. He's on the tube and a pregnant woman gets on. She's pregnant. She's also got a young baby on the side hip and bags. And he jumped up and she turned round, just to a then 60-year-old man in front of everybody, and went, I don't need your seat, you sexist git, because you think that, I'm a woman and I'm weak. And honestly, Jay, he came home and he cried to my mother, and it touched me because it was everything that he was brought up to do correctly, and he was humiliated by it. There are certain values that I will never trade, and I will not sit here and not comment when a Prime Minister thinks it's OK to call all those people on screen, not 100,000, right? And I don't agree with almost everything, and there are always bad eggs. But hundreds of thousands of hard-working, well-meaning British people who pay their taxes, don't break the law and have never had a handout, came out on Saturday and said, sorry, we've done it right and we feel like we're 28th in the bleeding queue and we're second-class citizens, and that is wrong. It's not far right, James Price. That is absolutely fair play to say it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's that kind of anger that so many people are now feeling. Yeah. And we just need to make sure that it's channeled into something constructive and something that's positive and something that's beautiful. Because the prize at the end of this, if we get it right, and I don't know which political party is the one that's going to do it, maybe it's something new, maybe it's Reform, maybe it's the Tories, maybe it's a coalition, but the chance to help restore a glorious future for what has been historically the greatest country on earth. It doesn't feel like it anymore, but instead of being all doom and gloom about it, people can get on their feet like this, they can talk to their members of parliament, they can stand for parliament, and they can spend the time between now and the next election reading a bunch of political books as well to understand the kind of details of what we need. Go and read a history book about what England used to be like. Go and read about the Glorious Revolution. Go and read about what we were like standing alone against Napoleon. Go and read what we were like standing alone against the Nazis, right? This is an inheritance that no other country on earth, even the Americans, can come close to matching. And I'll be damned if we're going to let that inheritance go on our watch, right?
Completely agree with you, mate. Love having you on. My regards to the wonderful Mrs. P. Patently you're punching, but we'll let that go. Lovely to have you on, mate. We'll see you very soon. Thank you so much, Dean. Yes, I do. Your dinner on the way, by the way. Your calls, 0344 499 1000. Text messages, 87322. The state visit, Donald Trump, where I used to live, Windsor, is in lockdown. US political commentator Laurie Laird, next on Tour Drive.
It's difficult. London's challenges are difficult sometimes, but that is the job of mayor. He's got to grapple with these difficult challenges. He's got to grapple with the unions that are bringing our city to a halt. But he just wants to get the, indulgence and the praise that he gets from this international class. Those people don't seem to be asking him the same difficult questions as perhaps he gets asked, whether he's in City Hall or he's speaking to journalists here in the city.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
27 minutes past 5. We're live across the United Kingdom. JK on Drive. Some breaking news from America after that appalling assassination of Charlie Kirk. JD Vance, the Vice President, guest hosting the late Charlie Kirk's eponymous podcast. He's doing it right now. You'll be able to see it on record. The Charlie Kirk Show will have the most powerful people in the country on it. That podcast will be worth watching at some point. Of course, ahead of the state visit, we'll be speaking to Laurie Laird, US political commentator in just a tick. So much about that. It's the biggest security operation ever after what happened to Charlie Kirk. Some text, Alan from Petersfield. Good for Danny Kruger moving to Reform. Now let's hope his brother Freddie joins Labour. Brilliant. On a serious note, condolences and rest in peace to Ricky Hatton, a true champion. Alison, hi Jess. Farage will only accept other MPs that he believes will help reform. Jake and Danny will be an asset to the party. I agree, Alison. My point is simply this. There will be many who are an asset. Jake Berry, yes. Danny Kruger, yes. I don't want it to just be, oh, listen, we're looking for continuing our jobs will go to reform. You have to, you know, I mean, for example, Jenrick, he's not going to join reform, but he had the balls, didn't he, to walk away from the government and say, I don't agree with it. Let's go to a caller. Let's go to High Wycombe. Rodney, you plonker. Rodney?
Hello, Jezza. How are you?
How are you, son?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I was just looking at the numbers that the BBC and everybody are putting out about the numbers that were in London on Saturday.
100,000, that's all there was, according to the BBC.
With no thugs. They were just people who are British people who just have had enough of this government, of the way we are being treated by the establishment. And basically, you know, unbelievable. I'm surprised, actually, that Mr. Farage was, you know, he had 25 arrested, nothing, absolutely nothing. There was 1 million people there. Absolutely fantastic.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you look at, and I've never been genuinely hand on heart. I worked for ITV for 20 years. I've never been one of those people who's been, you know, known to jump up and down about the mainstream media. But it is absolutely extraordinary to me in the space of, you know, I mean, look at, sorry, this is completely irrelevant and people think this is Gary Lineker, love him or loathe him, a lot of furore about him leaving the BBC. I could have asked you to put your house on the fact that he would win Presenter of the Year at the National Television Awards last week, because that's just the institutions that are terrified, I think, and I mean terrified. And look at that. There isn't a person in the land, unless it's Rachel from accounts who can't bloody well add up, that thought that was 100,000 people. But the rhetoric is, oh, it was only 100,000. Oh, 25 people. Oh, you shouldn't do. No. Nobody should harm a policeman or attack or a policeman. But can we have the conversation about Notting Hill, please?
Absolutely. It's incredible. Absolutely. We just got to hope that there's a general election, and hopefully after May next year, we end up with you know, reform winning, you know, in Scotland, in Wales, etc., and just then basically Mr. Starmer. And I know what they say what they were calling him, and he ain't far wrong from that. But at the end of the day, Mr. Starmer's got to go. I think I mean, I think the major local elections will be very, very relevant. Quick question for you, Rodney. Do you believe, I mean, Danny Kruger today, different for me because he's a sitting Tory and a shadow cabinet minister. As a reform supporter, listening to what you're saying, how do you feel about the defection of Tory MPs? What's your take on it? I certainly don't want Boris Johnson.
No.
Absolutely no way do I want him in reform. And I certainly understand that the Reform Party need some credible politicians who probably need to sort of do the job and be able to do the job. But at the end of the day, there are, you know, I don't need too many Conservatives going into the Reform Party.
Really good to have you on, mate. My regards to High Wycombe. Rodney, you belong 7. No, it isn't. It's 5:31. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. What's happened to your voice notes today? Old Dino, who's producing, he with the fake tan on, shaves his chest, He wants you to send him a voice note because he's feeling unfortunately treated, to be fair. 0344 499 1000. So Donald Trump, UK state visit this week. We're delighted to be joined by Laurie Laird, US political commentator. Hello, Laurie, how are you?
Jeremy, nice to see you. I can't pull off calling you Jezza, can I?
You can call me whatever you want. Listen, I've been called a lot worse than Jezza.
And it sounded wonderful, but in my accent, it just doesn't sound right.
Just say Jezza.
I'll give it a go. I'll practice.
OK. His state visit. I used to live in Windsor up to a couple of years ago. One of Britain's, the UK's biggest security operations, of course, amid copycat attack fears sparked by the Charlie Kirk assassination. Your view?
And look, I mean, it will be a huge security operation, and it could have been worse. It could have been more expensive, but most of the time he will be behind closed doors. He will not be doing much in the way of public appearances. Most of his touring and carriage rides and the whole, all of the pageantry that we think Donald Trump really loves, most of that will be on the grounds of Windsor Castle. So this operation could be a lot more extensive were he going out and being on the streets of London.
I know he's going to Chequers after he's been at Windsor. I was reading about the state visit over the weekend, and it's really interesting because there's no doubt that Donald Trump is not probably even the government. Well, they're in freefall. A lot of people in the higher echelons, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but maintaining a relationship with our nearest and dearest ally, bearing in mind the trade deal that they got over the ground and all those sorts of things, it obviously feeds his ego. It's what he loves, and the better you treat him, because his mother was Scottish and he loves the United Kingdom. So it is all about the pageantry. I don't know if you ever saw the clip of him on Air Force One showing a reporter the book with pictures of him and the Queen. I genuinely think he's a fervent royalist. But
without a doubt,
what I'm keen to ask is, I'm interested about the dynamics now, because of course from America you've got Trump and JD Vance and the horror of what happened to Charlie Kirk. And in the United Kingdom, we've got a government that apparently is in freefall that's just sacked its ambassador to the United States, Lord Dodgy Mandelson, for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And that's opened up a whole can of whoop-ass, there's an American phrase for you, about our Prime Minister. So it could be a powder keg, this meeting, in effect, couldn't it, to be fair?
I think this is the real flashpoint. That'll be that press conference at Chequers on Thursday. I think from tomorrow evening, President Trump will be greeted by Prince William, Princess Catherine. He loves that kind of stuff. I think that will go well. I think that the script has been written for King Charles by the government. And despite the fact that Charles and Donald Trump have very little in common, I mean, what are they going to talk about? Climate change? Donald Trump thinks that's a hoax. So, I mean,
wind farms, it's all going to go wrong, isn't it?
Exactly. But I think that King Charles will probably be able to stick to the script. Whether that means they just talk about his late mother, that so be it. But he'll know where not to stray. But I think where things could get a little bit tricky is at that press conference at Chequers on Thursday, because the media on both sides of the Atlantic have Jeffrey Epstein on the head. And the two things that are linking Keir Starmer and Donald Trump right now is being around people that had links, close links, to Jeffrey Epstein. I can't imagine that the media will leave that alone. And that has the potential to really tick Donald Trump off. I mean, I don't think we'll be as bad as what we saw in the Oval Office with Volodymyr Zelensky. But Donald Trump does get irritated when he is pulled off script. It's okay when he leaves his own script, but that could trip things up. I think that could be a very difficult
Can I put something to you? I know you well enough to do this, and I'd try and make it...
that's scary.
No, because I'm able to sort of make sense of stuff, and then sometimes when I'm on air, it doesn't perhaps come out as it should do, and that's me being really honest. I said to a friend of mine over the weekend that the most successful political leaders of our time, be they American or British, whoever, things seem to happen at a time where things happen that in history, in time, proved that was important to that person. The Falklands. Margaret Thatcher had the lowest approval rating of any Prime Minister in the history of the United Kingdom and would have gone had the Falklands decided to recapture it, lasted another 8 years. Tony Blair, you could say the same about the war in America. The tragedy the other day of Charlie Kirk, why I would take, not issue with what you said, but maybe a different view, is that I think it's all about Epstein here, but it's not. It's about the Prime Minister's complete bad judgment and who he's been told. Stateside, I suspect many of the Magda movement who were starting to ask about Epstein, and this is my point, will be so focused now on what happened to Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump's support, obviously, and knowledge and friendship with him, that I feel that will be slightly on the back burner for Donald Trump going forward. Because, do you understand what I'm trying to say really badly?
I do. And I'd love to debate you on that, but I think that you're probably right about that. I think Epstein will be a much hotter issue here than it will in the U.S. for the reasons that you just mentioned, and also because when Donald Trump says I wasn't that close to Epstein, there's a lot of reason to think that he's actually telling the truth on that one. No documented evidence that the men had been in each other's company since 2004, 2005.
Unlike our UK ambassador, who said in an interview with The Sun last week, there will be more emails to come, yet saying I love you and I'd like to stay in your house, although you're in jail for kiddie problems with children trafficking.
Jeremy, it was the photograph in the dressing gown, as terrible, as creepy as those words are, that you just... But Mandelson submitted that photograph of himself in a dressing gown to the infamous birthday book. It's crazy. I mean, this really is a picture worth 1,000 words. But I agree with you that the import of what happened last week in the U.S. will most certainly bring any questions about Trump's relationship with Epstein off the front pages. This is everything that American reporters are talking about right now, and they can't figure out how to talk about it.
Can I ask, as I haven't been on air since the horror of the Charlie Kirk thing, I finished last Wednesday. Obviously, America is split. We know that, between the people who absolutely support Donald Trump and those, like Robert De Niro, who think he's the lowest of the low and should leave. What happened to Charlie Kirk, some of the stuff that I saw online, some of the vitriol from the left was absolutely vile, wasn't it?
I think the vitriol on both sides has been unacceptable, Jeremy. And if you're not frightened about this, then you should be. The vitriol has been bad on both sides. And there's a clip that's been running. Trump has doubled down on his saying it's all the left that is perpetrating this. Both sides are bad here. And what worries me so much, honestly keeps me up at night, is you have a situation where both sides are feeling they're not heard. Both sides are feeling provoked. And this is in a country that has more guns than people. So I fear that what happened to Charlie Kirk, this is not the end of it. We're not even seeing either side go with the whole thoughts and prayers thing, that cliche that we bring out every time there's a school shooting. We're not even hearing that. We're not even hearing faux empathy. We're hearing more of this rhetoric, more of this ugliness. Both sides are guilty of this. And again, this is a country that's armed to the teeth. If you're not worried, you should be.
Completely agree. Lovely to have you on. Go on, just say Jezza, make my day.
Jezza. Thank you, Jezza.
Lovely to have you on. Laurie Laird, US political commentator. 20 to 6. Your calls on the way. Keep them coming. 0344 499 1000. Your sport. All that ahead of 6 on Talk Drive.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
18 minutes to 6, we're live across the UK. The lady that's pushing all the buttons today and doing, frankly, a brilliant job is called Yana. I was just looking at her thinking, I've never seen you before, so I should respect her. She's doing very, very well. Faith is taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. Dean's applying fake tan and is producing the show, and Amy, who pushes other buttons, is just sitting there smiling. We've wondered for 3 years, is it wind or just a happy demeanour? I'll let you work it out yourselves. Let's go to the phone lines. We're going to East Sussex. Charlie, you're on Talk Drive. How are you?
Hello, how are you, Jez? You all right?
Jez, now, I'm all right, actually. I think I'm all right. I'm all right. Yes, I'm sad about Ricky Hatton and the way the world's going, but yeah, cracking on, mate. What you got?
Well, the last few days, well, yeah, basically, I just wanted to say that I was there at the march on Saturday, and it was absolutely fabulous. Contrary to what you'll hear on the MSN, contrary to what you'll hear our wonderful leader saying, and saying that, you know, if the flag doesn't belong to us, he won't surrender it. Well, it does, actually. That's our flag. But I was there on Saturday, and I can tell you absolutely, categorically, I was shoulder to shoulder with all sorts of people, all sorts of ages, all sorts of colours. There were Jewish people, there were black people, there were Sikhs, there were Hindus, there were all sorts of people there, and we were all really, really having a lovely time. We didn't see any violence whatsoever. You know, have that in contrast to what goes on in these pro-Palestine protests and BLM, climate change, when they put themselves on the roads.
Well, this is really interesting, by the way, as you're speaking. Diane's texted me, and Jez, I was there on Saturday too. It was beautiful. My brother was a duty copper. So, it's right, there were 25 arrests, but she said, my brother was a copper, and this is factual. 9 of those were UK patriots, the rest were counter-protesters. These are correct figures. Can we deal with this, please? So, I ask you this, because the mainstream media won't like this. Were there only 100,000 people there or more, in your opinion?
Oh, my God, there was so much more. If you think about it, you can fill a Wembley Stadium with, what, is it about 100,000, something like that? So I'm sorry, but there's no way that those people there were 100,000. There was way, way, way more than that.
You don't sound to me like some crazed, mask-wearing, far-right thug, so I'll ask you this. Do you believe that the silent majority in this country have sussed out that their voices can be heard and they're not prepared to be lied to and just, I don't know, just ignored from now on? And I just don't think anymore we can have a Prime Minister who goes, you lot, 100,000, near a minute, you're all far-right thugs. And here's a great one for you while you're on the phone. From our mate Rob in Newcastle, what a legend he is. I could give Starmer a grain of pity and respect if he stepped forward live on TV and just said, hands up, I'm sorry, I thought I could do this, but I quite clearly can't, and I therefore will resign. But first I'll call a general election, let the people decide. But he won't, because he's a liar and a fool, and he won't appreciate how strong the feelings are.
Oh, 2 things. First of all, in answer to your first question, I would say that I think he underestimates the people that have actually woken up. And I think we're all thinking for ourselves. We can all see it. We can all, you know, smell the BS that comes over from, you know, from Westminster. And we've all had enough. And he said it's time for change. Well, what sort of change is that? It's got far, far worse. We've never had a government like it. No. And I think that's why people felt so passionate on Saturday to come out. They said it was the biggest march that's ever happened.
No, don't over-exaggerate. It was only 100,000 people.
Yes, so I counted them all.
Did you? Well done.
Yes, I did. And secondly, when you what was the second one? Sorry, I completely forgot.
No, Rob from Newcastle saying, you know, he'd have a grain of respect for Starmer if he'd come on television, say, I'm not up to the bloody job. He's under the cosh, and he still comes out and says, I'm not going to have all those far-right thugs take advantage of our flag. You can't call 1 million people. It's completely and utterly wrong and inaccurate. And I always want to say to Starmer, if you carry on like this, you idiot. What he's going to carry on is he's got no option. But I think people have woken up to the fact that it ain't fair. And I've heard all the arguments from people going, yeah, but the thing is, Jez, you haven't come from Eritrea. No, and you haven't worked all your life in Bury and paid your stamp and you can't see a bloody doctor.
think also, Jez, what will happen is that he's so arrogant, this man, that he simply can't back down, and he won't back down. I believe, and others do too, that he will call a general election rather than be booted out. Such is his ego.
Well, he'll be booted out in a general election, won't he?
He will be, but he would rather that than his own people booting him out. He can't do it. He would not be able to do it. He's got such an ego.
Really great, Charlie, to have you on. Thank you. The voice of reason. Let's shoot to London very quickly. Tarquin, just 1 minute on Talk Drive. What you got?
Des, I'm really concerned, Jez, that we've got potentially 4 more years of this lunatic in number 10. It's still on paper. We're still in that situation. We haven't got that time. He can do so much damage in 4 years.
I don't believe, and I listened to MG back with Morning Glory tomorrow at 6. I've listened to him tell me privately and on air for 6 months that this guy won't last. I've listened to all the doomsday people say Labour's never, ever, ever got rid of a leader. I will tell you categorically, in this climate, whether people like this or not, MPs will start to look at their inboxes, they'll start to look at the polls, and they'll go, Jesus, we're 2 years in and we are screwed. And they will do whatever they can, because that's what politicians do, to save their own backsides. I thought it was a really interesting point from Charlie. Is Starmer such an egotistical git that actually what he'll do is he'll call a general election and be booted out that way, but then his party will not be elected forever. For me, I get all that, I get the concern, but I do believe when I see what I saw at the weekend, and I refuse to accept the numbers, and I refuse to accept that the Met Police go, 25 people. I don't want them arrested. Nobody should attack a policeman. But let's talk about Notting Hill. Let's talk about reality. Let's talk about British people who are struggling. And I don't think that's far right, and I don't think it's unfair. And I'll argue the toss with anybody. People have said to me, I won't name her, this is unfair, this is far right, this is right. No, it's not. Get out there north of Watford Gap and meet real people who are struggling, because that's the truth, isn't it, Tarquin?
Totally concur with you. Thanks for me a minute. Thanks, Jeremy. I'll talk to you again soon, mate. Take care.
Top guy. Thank you very much, Steve. Tarquin in London, 10 to 6. My button's just flown off. Desk is falling to bit. Look at them all looking at me. What's he done now? So listen, head of sport at the Sun, Mike Anstey, on the way discussing for us what's going on. There's loads to talk about sports-wise. Your calls as well, 0344 499 1000. Kevin Southampton says, I became a pensioner officially back in February. I never expected to be living in my country and feeling this way. If ever the United Kingdom needed a superhero saver, it's now. Look skywards tonight, people. The bat signal I will light... What? The bat signal I will light up. Starmer needs to be gone. Cheers, Jez. Hello to Richard. I really hope Donald Trump will mention the amount of people he saw at the United Kingdom rally and embarrass Keir. I've said it already, Dickie. I'll tell you what I would love. I would love the doors of Air Force One to open and Donald Trump to walk down the stairs with Farage, or him to get out of his car to the banquet that Farage isn't invited. I'm daydreaming, but there you go. Right, 10 to 6, sport on the way.
let me say this about Danny Kruger. Danny Kruger has not joined the Reform Party because he wants to win his seat at the next election. His seat was one of the safest, and he is one of the most thoughtful and least, much to my frustration working for him for a very long time, one of the least political with a small p people in politics. He has done this because he is concerned about the direction of our country. He's concerned that we have one moment to save the country, and that is at the next general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, it's sports. So, Amy, very professionally, 3, 2, 1, go.
Sports news from The Sun.
Mind the gap! We say a very good afternoon to the legend. Well, he's basically a man who suffers like I do. Mike Anstead, let's just... I'm not going to say hold hands, we'll be arrested. A West Ham fan like me, mate, can I just use 30 seconds of broadcasting? I don't want to have a debate about Graham Potter. I watched the first or second goal. 8 of them just stood still. What is wrong with them?
I've never quite understood how you leave someone unmarked at a corner.
Woeful.
I've seen people lose their men and then score, but just leaving someone unmarked.
And then my manager says we were really strong at set pieces. They were rubbish.
No organisation, no leadership, absolute shambles. I mean, he's on borrowed time at the moment.
Do you think so?
I think so, yeah. I don't think the fans will put up with it much longer. They haven't got too much sort of vested interest in Potter.
Somebody in the...
not winning them over.
As a fan, this would be interesting to put this to you. Somebody said to me today, the best person, the person that will end up with is Nuno Espirito Santos. What do you reckon?
It's not a bad shout, yeah. I mean, Nuno did a great job at Forest. I know he fell out with Marinakis, but show me someone who hasn't fallen out with Marinakis at some point. But I think, you know, looking at the market of managers who are available, he won't be short of job offers.
Let's talk about Manchester United, the derby yesterday. I've read different things. United beaten 3-0. Man City, I thought, were OK. I thought Manchester United were pretty dreadful. He spent £210 million, Amorim. Today's come out. The board has said, we'll back him. He's not going to change his philosophy. Without getting too technical football-wise, it's not working, is it?
It's just not working. No, he's rigidly sticking with the 3-4-3 system, and it's not working. And at some point, you imagine, does someone at Manchester United tap him on the shoulder and go, this isn't working, are you going to change? But he's been so public with his insistence he won't change. Is there any point in having that conversation? It almost feels at the moment, is he kind of inviting them on to sack him, expecting the sack? We've just broken the story in the last hour on Sun Sport that players are starting to doubt him. That means his system, but that is ultimately him. So the pressure's on. You know, a lot of fans left before full-time whistle yesterday. That's a big indication that
I'm not a fan of Gary Neville's, but I thought his commentary yesterday, when he was asked the question about how did he feel, was really powerful. He said, you know, I watch Manchester United games as a die-hard Red, and he said, I feel upset, I feel disappointed. Today, I feel nothing, and that's the worst thing I can feel. He said, I'm getting used to it. And you know, we all know with managers who won't move, in the end, there's only one person that... And, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
Absolutely. And I think now, if you're a future employer of Ruben Amorim, you might be thinking, well, hold on, this guy is pretty rigid. He won't stick to it, so he doesn't adapt. So even Pep Guardiola, who has a philosophy, we all know that, he does adapt.
Yeah, he does. This is not a story on your list, but I think it's very, very well worth doing. Sheffield United destroyed by Ipswich on Friday. Ruben Seles, sacked by Hull, replaces Chris Wilder, who got 100 points and lost in the playoff final. Chris Wilder, pure Sheffield United, out the door 3 months ago. Seles sacked. And is it it true that Chris Wilder's going back?
Chris Wilder is back, yep, confirmed today. He's up speaking tomorrow, so it's going to be fascinating.
I'd love to know how he felt in June.
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, his bank manager's probably happy because presumably he got a bit of a payoff and now he's got a nice signing on fee and perhaps gone back for a salary increase. But it was madness they got rid of him in the first place. Ruben Sellers was flavour of the month, obviously completely hopeless there. And good luck to Chris Wilder, because he's a proper successful championship manager. He's one of the good guys in the game. And, they're a massive club, but, at the moment they're sitting rock bottom of the Championship.
Man City ready to battle Liverpool for Crystal Palace and England defender Mark Gay, who I thought was the best player for England the other night. This is the guy, the transfer from Crystal Palace to Liverpool didn't happen. He kept his head down, went and performed absolutely brilliantly. Yeah. I thought he was the best player on the pitch. Man City, that's interesting.
Well, one end of the scale you had Alexander Isak, who refused to play despite being paid a whopping salary, and the other end you got Mark Gay, who quietly got on with it. He knew Liverpool were in for him, they bid for him, they tried to get the deal done, it was all moving on deadline day, didn't quite happen for him. So he's out of contract at the end of the season. So Liverpool will come back in January, expect to have another go at signing him on a cheap deal. Man City also fancy him because Pep's struggling for some proper decent centre-halves at the moment. We also know Barcelona and Real Madrid are interested.
I thought he looked world-class for England. I thought he was extraordinary.
He's an absolute
just one of those defenders, not 8'7", but just read the game.
He's world-class, brilliant for what it matters, but he's a lovely bloke off the pitch, a good solid pro, good rep for your club. And at the age of 25, you're buying a defender who could be playing for 10 years for you. So,
do you know what I have to deal with here? And it's lovely to have you. This is what I've got to deal with. I've just had this typed up. West Ham suffer heavy defeat. Is Graham Potter under pressure? That's what we started doing. We did 2 minutes at the beginning. Too busy putting fake tan on Dean. See what I'm going to have to deal with? Very quickly, does Amarin last? Yes or no?
I can't see. If he's rigidly sticking to the system, which he insists he is, I can't see how he lasts. You'll get the odd, positive result from Manchester United, but this giant transformation, I just can't see where it comes from.
Couldn't agree more. Great to have you on. Check it out tomorrow. Sun Sport, always the best for your sporting information. Mike Anstey, head of content at the Sun Sport. Tomorrow, all the back pages, all the news you want anywhere. It's almost 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK on Talk Drive. If you want to be on the next hour, 0344 499 1000. Got Chloe Dobbs on their way. And your text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. News at 6 next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My friends, welcome back. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're here until Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm officially Kevin O'Sullivan's fluffer for the next 60 minutes. 0344 419 1000. So many people trying to get on. Line some calls up for me, team. Keith Henderson, I hope the Unite the Kingdom marches to the major cities across the UK, as not all of us can get to London. Chris Starmer's dilemma. Does he call a general election now, knowing that Reform UK are not set up at this moment? Does he hold on for a couple more years? Really, really interesting point. I think he's stuffed whatever he does. Just to give you an idea, of course, the big news story well, there's Danny Kruger defecting, Shadow Cabinet Minister to Reform. We'll take your calls on that, 0344 499 1000. Keir Starmer under all sorts of pressure about what he knew before he stood in the Commons on Wednesday and said, I have total confidence in Peter Mandelson. Next day, sacked him. It now transpires that he knew that these emails were more incriminating but didn't bother to read them or wasn't shown them. In a really, really, how do I put this, domineering performance today. That'd be ridiculous. I spit on that. This is him trying to wiggle out of it. This is Keir Starmer. This is it. Basically, he says, I would never have appointed him if I'd known. My answer would be, why don't you bloody well find out? And that's your job. Play it.
Let me talk this through with you because it's important to appreciate what happened when, and I understand that. Obviously, the diplomatic post of American ambassador, really important post, and Peter Mandelson, before he was appointed, went through a due diligence process. That's the propriety and ethics team. Went through a process, and therefore I knew of his association with Epstein. But had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
I mean, sorry, I know I like a rag to a bull. Wouldn't you? Chloe Dobbs, good afternoon.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Wouldn't you find out more? Because the rumours coming out of 10 Downing Street, and I'd love your response to this, is that actually the truth is that Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, is a little puppet of Mandelson, wanted to make Mandelson Foreign Secretary, all part of the Blair years. 24 hours before the reshuffle was listed, Mandelson in number 10 with Morgan McSweeney for 6 hours, which begs the question, was this a stitch-up? If that happened without the Prime Minister knowing, people can go, oh, he should damn well find out if he's the Prime Minister. What is he, a figurehead? Because, in my humble opinion, love your opinion, if he misled Parliament, he's only got one option, hasn't he? Because that's what he accused Boris of. And if he didn't mislead Parliament and his number 2, if you like, the Chief of Staff has let him down, he needs to sack him as well. But if he sacks him, he's screwed there as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he might try and throw Morgan McSweeney under the bus, whether it is the case that Morgan McSweeney held information from him or not, just to try and save himself. If he is found to have misled Parliament, that's going to be really bad. But I mean, look, I've seen so many different articles with so many different timelines as to who knew what and when. I can't piece it together. But what is clear, and it was clear when Kemi Badenoch absolutely roasted Starmer at PMQs on Wednesday, that they at least knew that Peter Mandelson had a significant involvement with Epstein. Kemi Badenoch laid out there that he had done business deals with Epstein after he'd been convicted. He was involved.
Stayed in his apartment.
Friends with him after he'd been convicted. Even if you just knew that, you would think this guy is not fit for the job. But what clearly happened is he was appointed for 2 reasons, even though they knew that he was linked to Epstein. One, the Starmer administration was very worried when they came to office about their relationship with Donald Trump, especially given that they are so diametrically opposed politically. You'd had David Lammy, Starmer, and various others had said horrific things about Trump in the past. They really wanted a good relationship with Donald Trump, and they thought, even though this guy's got links to Epstein, he's experienced, we know he'll do a good job. And then the other thing is, I guess they wanted to keep the Blairites happy.
I think the Blairites run the party. I think the Blairites run the government still. I do. And with Mandelson, it's always been money. It's always been money. Whether it was the Indian businessman who offered him money for the passport, whether it was Jeffrey Robinson, of course, who lent him 373
He likes being
grand.
around rich people, doesn't he?
He does like to be. But I mean, Laurie Laird was right. The dressing gown picture, I mean, honest to God, Petey, and by the way, Yum Yum, what does all that mean? You don't want to talk
yeah,
about it. It'll be sick in your throat at that point, isn't it? Yeah, dreadful. Now, this is breaking news. This is really interesting. So, the Labour Party, it seems to be, is about to tear itself to shreds because there are Labour MPs saying, "What did you know?" He thinks that pathetic performance is going to be enough. It isn't. We've just heard that Sir Lindsay Hoyle has granted an emergency debate on what they knew about Lord Mandelson tomorrow. Now, Lindsay Hoyle was a Labour MP. That ramps up the pressure even... He is under pressure, Starmer, isn't he? And who'd have thought it? 12 months in. Ridiculous, man.
I know. I mean, this whole 12 months... I mean, I can't even keep up with how many scandals there are. Every single day, there is a new scandal. We've now got another guy from Number 10 resigning over these comments with
Sorry,
Ryan
can we
Abbott,
have that a minute? Can we have that a minute? I'm going to ask a lady, and I'm going to do it with a dead straight face. Because any form of that is disgusting. But apparently... a gentleman called Paul Overton, is that right? Senior Keir Starmer aide has resigned over lurid Diane Abbott comments. Your response, Chloe Dobbs?
It's just really dumb, the things that the people in the Labour Party seem to do and not think it's going to blow up in a scandal. If you post something stupid on WhatsApp, I think in this day and age, I know we did this back in 2020, but it's still close enough, you need to know, if you type something on WhatsApp, there's a very good chance that somebody is going to screenshot it. So think about what you're writing.
Completely
agree. The fact that it's only really just come to light now and become a scandal now, 5 years later,
it's because the press are out to get Starmer because he's a lie. Yes,
yeah, they're trying to... Well, exactly. The press are trying to find anything that they can, and they will continue until that man is gone. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Keir Starmer does manage to hang on.
Well, there's that story, of course, emanating repeatedly that Starmer, is fortunate that the Labour Party has never really got rid of a sitting leader. They always wait for a general election. Now, the other thing that somebody just said just now, which was interesting, is that Reform, by their own admission, aren't ready. They might be riding high in the polls. Does Starmer throw caution to the wind and call a general election, knowing that he'll be going to be booted out, but maybe Reform won't get... I have no idea, but I have to say, I listened to Mike Graham say this a lot. I've said that many times today. I never thought it would be this soon. But their political ineptness and his lack of judgment, his lack of nous, his lack of being able to read the room, understand the vibe, the belief that some soundbite that's been run by an online group or, a focus group is going to be enough. I think the British people have wised up to it, Claire. I think they're fed up with lies.
Yeah, I mean, the public are absolutely fed up of him, and you're right, he cannot read the room. And it's not just him, it's his whole team doing stupid things like Angela Rayner deciding to buy that house and thinking that wasn't going to blow up in a huge scandal. I mean, what planet
money, all of them.
What planet are you on, woman, when you're the housing minister?
Well, what about the corruption minister being done for corruption, or the homeless minister for making people homeless?
Incompetent. And when we think, oh gosh, the economy is going down the drain, we must replace Rachel Reeves with someone better, you think, hang on, there actually isn't anybody better. They're all completely incompetent. And so they're a disaster. But I don't think that they would call maybe in a couple of years' time, I think the thing that would only push them over the edge to call a general election is if the markets force it. I mean, they're already crashing quite badly, but if it becomes so dire where they are going cap in hand to the IMF, that might force it.
I don't think the IMF has got money. If Starmer had to fall on his sword or was booted out, in your experience as a political commentator, this is a terrible thing. Because before you answer this, if you look at the list of Labour members, top of the list that they would vote for, 73% is unbelievably Ed Miliband. Bottom is West Streeting because he's taking on the unions, right? Who's going to be the next leader? Well, it's not going to be David Lammy.
God help us if that happens. I mean, as I said, with all of these roles, there's no very clear, talented successor. And that is why I think there's a good chance that he actually will hang on until close to the general election, because you can look back at Theresa May. In 2017, her reputation was absolutely toast, but she managed to cling on for 2 more years because there wasn't a clear successor to replace her, and I feel like that is the case. I know there have been a lot of people talking about Andy Burnham over the past couple of days, but I don't think that is a clear option, because
Shall I tell you why?
Because, well, he'd have to vacate, he couldn't be mayor anymore, and then Reform would probably take that, and then a Labour MP would have to resign their
Lucy
seat.
Powell.
And if there is a by-election, there's a good chance Reform could win.
There's no way that Andy... I think James Price said it earlier, and I know you'll agree with this. There's no way he cannot not stand in Manchester, because he's made this big thing. He'd have to stand in Manchester to, you know, stay true to his northern roots. Reform would win every seat in Manchester right now. That's absolute fact. Polling tells us that.
When there are by-elections, there have been very, very few cases in history where the incumbent government wins that seat. So it's very unlikely for Labour to. People tend to rebel in by-elections.
And Andy Burnham would probably want to wait for him to lose the election and then ride in.
Yeah, or at least wait until close to the general election. I don't think he would want to pick it up right now since the party's in such a mess.
Really interesting. I'll give you an outsider. This has just come to my head. A Blairite, safe pair of hands, not because of his name. He was sent out to defend Starmer the other day. Peter Kyle, watch him. I'm being serious. If they went for a compromise candidate, somebody quite grey and straight down the middle. He was the science and technology guy. He's now the business guy, isn't he? But it's interesting to me. I mean, that comment about how, you know, potentially Peter Mandelson was in 10 Downing Street organising the reshuffle. What the hell's going on? It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, what I found absolutely mad was the fact that Peter Kyle was the one sent out on the media rounds to defend Mandelson, saying that it was worth the risk appointing this guy who had links to having links to a paedophile, when he is the one who went and said that Nigel Farage, by criticising the online safety bill, was basically cozying up to paedophiles like Jimmy Savile. I'm like, do you not see the hypocrisy there?
No,
Why did you send Peter Kyle out to do all of those interviews?
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about the other big political story of the day. Undoubtedly, Starmer is under pressure. Just to repeat that breaking news, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, has granted an emergency debate on Lord Mandelson tomorrow. So you'll have lots of visions of Starmer squirming if he turns up, because he's in trouble, because even his own MPs want to know how, if he didn't know, why he said he did, and if he did, how the hell he lied and didn't.
There's no way he comes out of this well.
Excuse my French, we might have to drop that, but he's absolutely in a mess over this, and quite rightly too. Other big thing, 11 o'clock this morning, press conference from Reform. Tory MP Danny Kruger has defected. For me, a game changer. I've been quite vocal. We were together at the conference. I don't think it should become a rest home for Tory MPs who are trying to save their jobs. I know about Nadine, I know about Jake. This to me felt very different, not only because he's quite a thinker, Danny Kruger, but shadow cabinet minister, ran Robert Jenrick's campaign to be leader. And I think, Nigel's given him the job of heading up the department for preparing for government. I think a good signing. I think just very quickly, the opposition leader saying, if you don't agree with me, go, is just about the worst look again, Kemi, because I still don't know what you stand for, love.
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch hasn't made much progress on saving the Tory party, and that, you know, clearly Danny Kruger has seen that. He's waited it out. He's waited a year. And what's very telling is the fact that he wasn't just any Tory MP, but he was managing Robert Jenrick's campaign. And you would have thought that he would have stayed there if he thought Robert Jenrick can topple Kemi and save the Tory party. But he's now realised, even with Jenrick, there's no hope, or at least that's what I expect that has gone through his head. And he now thinks that Reform are the best way to beat socialism. And this is a guy who has been a devout Tory his entire life. And I think this is quite different to, say, Nadine Dorries switching over, where people think, oh, Nadine, she was always a bit of a rebel anyway. This is someone who's not been a super rebellious
front and centre of the Tory party.
Exactly. Realising now that actually the Tory party is dead. As I said, he's been very patient. He's tried to help Jenrick, to help try and save that party after that. He didn't just jump ship after the general election or before the general election thinking, oh, I'm going to lose my seat to Reform, so I better jump over. He's waited, he's tried his best to save it, and now he sees there's absolutely no hope. So I think that's very telling. There might be a mixed reaction from Reform members because, as you said, there's a risk that they're seen as just a haven for ex-Tories. And I see it whenever I post any sort of video about a Tory jumping over, you get loads of people angry in the comments saying, how dare they take those traitors from the Tory party. But I think
I agree
but
with,
I think a few people bringing a bit of experience, I think, is useful if they're the right people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, the other, do you know, in all the midst of all this madness, we've forgotten to mention that today is the start of the migrant returns deal with France, ladies and gentlemen. This is where Keir Starmer agreed with Macron.
I'd almost forgotten about it because they said it was going to start months ago.
Yeah, also they forgot about it because apparently it's 1 in and 1 out. Actually, the truth is it's 2,500 in and 1 out, which is ridiculous, isn't it? The other thing I want to talk to you about, you live in London, right? Did you go to the Unite the Kingdom march on Saturday?
I didn't know.
The mainstream media are reporting, and have been reporting all day, all weekend. 100,000 people. I've had call after call after call after call that the only person that could have prepared those figures is Rachel
Diane
from
Abbott?
Accounts.
Oh.
Yeah, because she can't add up, because it was nearer 1 million. The police made this big thing about 25 arrests. Let me publicly state again, nobody should break the law, and those 25 people should be arrested. But it's as if the government and the Met Police are going, you know, Starmer today, well, I won't give up the flag to these far right. You are not going to win the argument where 1 million decent people have had enough in how they're being treated and have taken to the streets peacefully. You're not going to convince any of us that a few gangster mob type idiots who will always infiltrate that stuff, left, right or whatever, were the majority, because they weren't. And I just think, like I said last week, the people are starting to believe that their voice can be heard.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see how many people were there. I don't know the exact figures, but just looking at the helicopter footage, it was a heck of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what was clear is that there were loads of people there who aren't, you know, staunch Tommy Robinson supporters, a lot of people who don't really care about him that much, but just wanted an opportunity to fly the British flag or the English flag and show that that's an okay thing to do after we've had so much backlash about the English flag in recent times, and to just stand up to not just Starmer's government but successive governments that they feel haven't listened to them. They've gone to the ballot box time and time again and asked for immigration to be sorted out and various other issues, and nothing has been done. And I think what Starmer's tweet that he put out, he's just made the situation worse by showing once again, I'm not listening, I don't understand, I don't have my finger on the pulse as to what people care about in this country. You know, he did it last year when we had the riots. Of course, I don't condone rioting, but he needed to recognise why those were happening.
Yeah.
People were furious about immigration, but he just dismissed them as
No, I think it was.
as far-right thugs, and it feels like he's doing the same again.
But where I thought was really interesting last year after the riots, actually taking you up on that, is that, yeah, you're right. He felt that by standing up and saying all of these people are far-right thugs, by rounding them up, putting them in court and in jail within 24 hours, and we knew at that point there were no prison spaces, no police and no judges at all, so it was an extraordinary thing, that would quell it. The big mistake he made then, and well, I think he could have released more information then, to be honest, and then there wouldn't have been those riots, but that's just my opinion. I said it, and I think you're right. If you honestly are that naive, again, your judgment needs to be questioned. If you think now that you can stand up and say, you're all far-right folks, it's absolute rubbish. And what, you know, a lot of people will say, look, Michael says, we're in trouble. It worries me, says Michael, it's getting worse in EC1. I'd say to Michael, and I'd say to everybody, I've got great faith. I have great faith in the British people, and I genuinely believe that they... reasonable, hard-working, everyday people have woken up to the fact that they feel like they're eighth in the queue and they're not prepared to accept it. They're not going to be violent, but they're going to protest and they're going to vote. A lot of people saying he's got till May.
Yeah, as I said, there's not a very clear successor with Starmer, so I think there is a chance that he will hang on, but the frustration of the public is not going to go away. I think after we've had, especially all of the protests outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, and yes, they haven't succeeded in closing it ultimately, but you did have that High Court injunction that made people feel as though if we protest, something might happen. Our voices might be
protesting, by the way,
and
at Epping because they're concerned that their teenage daughters, because a migrant in the hotel next door had attacked a young girl. Proven.
And that's the perfect example of the kind of person who maybe is not normally that politically involved, just a person who wants to normally go about their life and just go to work, pay their bills, look after their children, doesn't really think about politics until close to an election. You've got people who are now seeing, not just with the migrant hotels, with the cost of living and everything, they're seeing the failure of successive governments actually really impacting their lives, and now people are feeling like we need to do something. And as I said before, people feel like at the ballot box their voice isn't being heard, so they're now taking to the streets. I'm very happy to see that this year the various protests that have happened have been a lot more peaceful than what happened last year.
But what you're right about is, in the past, Starmer could say, oh, they're all they're all far right. It doesn't wash anymore. It's not all far right. It's reasonable people saying,
well,
we've
every
had
time
enough.
he does that, he exacerbates the problem. The people on the streets, because they feel like they're not listened to, every time Starmer puts out a tweet like that saying there are all far right thugs, he just makes people feel even more like they're not listened to. So he might have in the short terms, for example last year, stopped the riots in the short term by clamping down really hard, but in the long term he just exacerbated people's frustration.
I think you're amazing. Thank you very much indeed. What's the other thing I was going to say to you? Oh, we've done the migrants. Oh, there's a lot more else to say. Oh yes, coming next, you pin back your logos. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make an announcement. Still to come. We've got Matt Wilkinson, the royal editor from The Sun, because, and yes, you heard this here, Prince Harry has said overnight that next year has to be about my dad. Sorry? You heard it right. Prince Harry says next year has to be about my dad. We'll unravel that with Matt Wilkinson next. And thank you to Chloe Dobbs. Back in 3.
Let me say this about Danny Kruger. Danny Kruger has not joined the Conservative the Reform Party because he wants to win his seat at the next election. His seat was one of the safest, and he is one of the most thoughtful and least, much to my frustration working for him for a very long time, one of the least political with a small p people in politics. He has done this because he is concerned about the direction of our country. He's concerned that we have one moment to save the country, and that is at the next general election.
Yeah, it's difficult. London's challenges are difficult sometimes, but that is the job of mayor. He's got to grapple with these difficult challenges. He's got to grapple with the unions that are bringing our city to a halt. But he just wants to get the, indulgence and the praise that he gets from this international class. Those people don't seem to be asking him the same difficult questions as perhaps he gets asked, whether he's in City Hall or he's speaking to journalists here in the city.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 6:25. So much going on in the world. Danny Kruger, the Tory MP, shadow cabinet minister, defects to reform today. That's caught the news. Keir Starmer under pressure from everybody. His backbenchers. Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, has called an emergency debate on Lord Mandelson tomorrow. Expects Starmer to be skewed. I mean, he's got questions to answer. The reaction to the Unite the Kingdom march is massive. People are saying that the mainstream media have made up how many people were there. There weren't that many arrests, and actually it no longer is it acceptable for our Prime Minister to call everybody who's peacefully protesting a far-right thug? You might have missed in the news all of this. The Channel migrant deal started with Macron and Starmer today, where one out, one back. Didn't really work like that, none went. But we're delighted to deal with the other story, the main news story, OK? One of the main news stories. Matt Wilkinson is here, the Royal Editor of The Sun. How are you, sir?
Very well.
He's very excited. We'll tell you why in a sec. State visit, but before we talk about that, let's talk about Prince Harry. Article in The Sun today. God. Try, Jez. Next year, says the Ginger Whinger, it's got to be all about my dad. That was the first comment. Let's deal with that.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, the problem with Harry is that they've let him in for a very short, brief time.
54 minutes.
I was there, actually. I was videoing him going in and out.
Were
I think
you?
It was, yeah, I videoed on my phone. I think it was 53, 54 minutes of him coming in. There was a series of audiences where they'd lined up the King at a series of audiences before and after. Harry came in the visitors' entrance, so he would have been in there for about half an hour. It was just one of a number of audiences that the King had that day. But they let him in.
Not father and son walking around the garden?
No dinner. It was just a cup of tea. So we had less time than, I think, the premiere of South Australia. And that's all it was. And surprise, surprise, Harry's first opportunity, you know, after being given this, I hate to say olive branch, but given this opportunity to his father, is to start talking about his father again. And I think Buckingham Palace, I wonder if it was a trap. I wonder if, like, letting Harry in for this short period of time, let's go and see how he reacts.
He's reacted. He went to Ukraine. He spoke about it straight away.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to... We have a good relationship. I'm going to be honest with you. My first reaction when I saw him say, next year is about my dad, to me that exacerbates in my mind that the King's ill and he needs to make his peace with his dad. That's me being completely honest. There are cynics who'll say he's trying to get in before maybe the King isn't here and his brother throws him out. I mean, maybe it's a trap, but every single person I've spoken to says the same thing.
Yeah.
You deluded man. You can't treat people like that and expect the world to just go like that and everything's fine.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, talking about the year thing, that might just be his 12-month project. You know, it might be his 12-month project before another Netflix comes. I wouldn't dwell on the year. No. But with Prince Andrew, if you think back to Prince Andrew, in the late Queen's last years or the later years, he would often try to get her alone.
Yeah.
He would often try and speak to her and say, can you help me out with this? And aides would be a little bit worried when Andrew would get the Queen alone because he would get his own way and because she liked him a lot. And that's what I wonder whether Harry is thinking, I need to get my father alone so I can, start planning for my future. And I think people will be nervous about that behind palace walls.
The other thing, apart from, and you're probably very right that behind palace walls there is this fear, and we talked about it last week, didn't we, that anything you say to him will be in the public domain, and he's proven that again, is the comment about Spare that drives both you and I, Spare. This wasn't, said Harry, my book called Spare, where he bitched about almost every part of the royal family and every relationship he'd ever had. This wasn't about washing my dirty linen in public. Sorry? What else was it then?
Well, there was about 400 odd pages of airing dirty linen. I think it's just a way of Harry trying to clean his image. I think he's trying to kind of rewrite history, and it's not the first time he's done it. You know, if you remember, after he appeared on Oprah Winfrey and they accused the royal family of being racist, a couple of years later, when he was promoting his book Spare, he was interviewed by Tom Bradby, and he said, "Oh no, I never called the royal family racist." It was almost like,
but you did.
It's almost like gaslighting the British public. We're not stupid, No. It's like telling us something that we all saw happen, or we all read in this book, that you're airing so many stories about Catherine, about Prince William, the fight with William, conversations with your father, growing up, all the issues and moans that you had, telling us, no, I didn't actually do that, it was about correcting truths. But we saw it, we read the book, we know what happens in it, and so, I don't think he goes very far with that argument.
No, and that's the point with him, isn't it? You end up looking at it and you end up saying and being quite cynical as to what his motives are and not really believing the authenticity of much he says. And a lot of people will say, she's got his ear. She's the reason he's like this. Well, stand up for yourself, man. I mean, I don't know. Patently, if he does come back or spend more time with his father, she's nowhere to be seen. She's too busy making jam or something, isn't she?
Well, she's been very quiet. She didn't post any Instagram posts when he was here. But no, the thing that worries me about these comments, because he also says, my conscience is clear. He says, my conscience is clear. Right. And, you know, I wasn't airing dirty linen. I begin to think that maybe Harry believes this, which is kind of more worrying, that he believes that this is his truth.
I'm convinced he does.
He keeps talking about, this is my truth, the book was all about my truth, and I believe that I wasn't airing dirty linen. So he's either gaslighting us, or this is worryingly something that he actually believes.
The reason I'm old and that you're much younger, but I completely adhere to what you're saying, because the people are teaching me that is my truth. My truth amongst the younger generation means that anything anybody else says is a load of old rubbish and we're going to get you cancelled. Not there's two sides to an argument. And he would absolutely, I suspect, motivated by her and the sorts of people he now hangs around with, will be telling him, you know, you've been treated unfairly. Quite interesting last week, William, 7 miles away, didn't want anything to do with him, and I don't think that's ever going to change because of, as you said last week, what and how he treated his wife after everything that was going through. You know, Harry and his reaction to Catherine, because they were close, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it's really,
she came along.
I think it's really stark. I think it's really obvious that William avoided him, and you know, I know Harry wants to get back. You know, his claim that he wants to get back with the British public.
Does he want to get back with his brother? That's my question.
Well, he needs to, because William and Kate are 70-odd%, you know, the most popular royals, and Harry isn't. So I don't believe that he.
And he's going to be the next king. Are they going to be the king and queen?
Yeah, yeah. But William's very clever. He doesn't want to be seen with Harry. He's made it very clear that he doesn't. You know, he hasn't said anything, but he's made it very clear by working very hard last week and doing jobs like going to open a mental health hub in Cardiff, the Women's Institute paying tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth II, going to a homelessness centre. These are jobs that Harry and Meghan didn't really think were worth staying in the UK for.
Yeah.
These are the jobs, you know, and he'll be doing them next week and the week after. When Harry's gone...
Very under the radar, a bit like the most hard-working royal of all, the Princess Royal.
Exactly.
Does 600 or 700 a year, never gets credit, never... Honestly, there was many years when I thought I wish she'd followed her mother. I think she's an absolute example of, you know, don't complain, just get on with the job. Exciting times for you, state visit. And you've got a bit of a gig tomorrow, haven't you?
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Donald and Melania will be going to...
He's on first-name terms now with the President, your mate Donald.
Donald and Mr Trump and First Lady Trump. They'll be going to St George's Chapel, where the late Queen was laid to rest, where her tomb is, and they'll be laying a wreath or some flowers at her tomb, and I'm very lucky that will be my rota job, and I'll be following them around St George's Chapel. It should be quite an emotional visit because...
Have you been there since the Queen?
Yeah, I've been there as a tourist. I've been there as for work as well. But you know, he was a big fan of the late Queen, and I think this will be really important to him. And it's interesting that Macron came, he went and laid a wreath, but we weren't allowed to go and attend. This time, we are allowed to go and see how Donald Trump reacts to this, and he was, as I say, a massive fan of
Did you ever see the footage of him on Air Force One? And listen, people will understandably criticise him. And there's several things that I don't like about him, but I believe that he's a fervent royalist. There was some footage on Air Force One, and he was showing somebody, and that was me and the Queen. I can't do the accent. Yeah. And people criticised him. Oh, you stood in front of her, and I'm sure she thought he was slightly uncouth and too orange. But I believe. And obviously they're stroking his feathers because they want a trade deal, and he loves all the pageantry, and he'll think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But, you know, it'd be fascinating to... Have you been that close to Donald Trump before?
No, I haven't, no. But I think watch out for this next week. I think it's going to be the highlight. So, like, State Banquet will be amazing, obviously. Catherine will be dressed up.
Nigel Farage is not invited.
He's not invited.
Yeah. Are you going to the State Banquet?
I'll be sitting outside. I
don't know what your job is. I mean, I know what your job is, but so tell me, they're all there in their finery having quail's eggs and caviar, and you're outside with a chicken burger, are you?
We have sandwiches, and we get to.
Matt, this is very glamorous.
We get to go in and have a look at the table beforehand. So we get to see. We run around and think who's sitting where. You know, where is Starmer? Where is everyone sitting? Who are the guests? And then we get to listen to the speech. We get to see everybody arrive. But we are literally in an ante-room. While they are all having sandwiches, having a very small
royal sandwiches though.
Like egg and cress or something like that. Like last
cucumber.
Time, where they're having, they'll be having, I don't know, something delicious, something very expensive, and representative of both UK and US cuisine. I mean, I know Donald Trump.
He loves the burger.
He loves a burger.
He loves the burger. I'm wondering whether there'll be sliders on the menu at Buckingham Palace. But look, you know, it's fascinating, and it must be really interesting. I mean, for you to see Trump in person for the first time, and there will be, from a royal royal point of view, the full works thrown for him. When they're calling it the biggest security operation ever, but all the pageantry, all the horses, all the carriages, all the guards, the fly past and everything, right?
As much as they possibly can, because there won't be a carriage procession through Windsor. So it will be in Windsor Great Park, but it'll be lined by soldiers. It'll be lined by guardsmen, and it'll look.
You're going down the long walk, is it?
It'll be going down the long walk, and it'll be going into Windsor Great Park, and that will be spectacular. But it won't be. There won't be crowds lining the streets.
Is that deliberate?
I think so. It's all confined inside Windsor Castle, so everything at Windsor will be behind the walls, for security reasons. But there'll be a wonderful guard of honour in the quadrangle. That'll be spectacular. I'm hoping it doesn't rain too much. The weather doesn't look great. There'll be a welcome. Catherine and William will welcome them first, and then the King and Queen will welcome them. Then there'll be a fly past. There will be music. There will be carriages. Amazing. It will be absolutely brilliant. But Windsor Castle will be the setting. And there was one for Macron a couple of months ago, and Windsor Castle is a beautiful, beautiful setting. St George's Hall.
I lived there for 7 years.
St George's Hall, where they're having the state banquet. It's surrounded by you've got suits of armour, shields and plaques in a spectacular room, and I actually prefer it to Buckingham Palace in many ways. It's
far more. It's quite interesting. The reason I said I lived there, because I was back there the other day and I was speaking to my old neighbours, and they were saying that Windsor has changed immeasurably since the Queen passed. The King doesn't spend as much time there. He goes to Highgrove, of course. She was always at Windsor, and the town has slowed down a little bit, but actually this state visit is massively important and has generated real interest again. But yeah, no, you're right, the castle and all that is unbelievable. What a lucky man you are. So this man, ladies and gentlemen, will be having sandwiches at Buckingham Palace tomorrow night, whilst Donald Trump, or Wednesday, whatever, when Donald Trump's eating quail's eggs and a slider.
Yeah, that doesn't actually sound that impressive, actually, really, if I'm having sandwiches.
But to be inside Buckingham Palace?
Inside Windsor Castle, yeah, I'll be 100 metres away with about 20 security officers.
I'm building you up, don't knock yourself down. Listen, we look forward to reading all about this week, and we appreciate that. And I think you're right about Harry. It's a bit rich, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to shut up. I think he's addicted to the attention. He couldn't resist talking about his father again.
And you might be dead right about the palace. Let's just give him 30 minutes, 50 minutes and see whether he blabs, and he did again. Matt Wilkinson, have a great week with Trump and the royal family. Thank you very much indeed. Royal editor for The Sun. You can follow all the latest of that state visit as it happens in The Sun, out tomorrow, of course. And actually, ahead of 7, we'll speak to... he's called Sarge now, John Lucas, the night news editor, who's gathered quite a following amongst the ladies who listen to this show. He'll come in and tell you what's in the paper tomorrow. Did you know that old Sarge has got a bit of a reputation now?
Oh, well, he won't stop talking about it.
Honestly, they come downstairs and they go, I've got emails. And he's boring. We're back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Line up tomorrow, Julia from 10, the legend that is Mike Graham with Morning Glory from 6 a.m. Do not miss it. My father-in-law says that if they let Harry back in, it's going to damage the monarchy. Good on you, Rob. So many people texting Chris Starmer's dilemma. Does he call a general election now, knowing that Reform UK are not set up at this moment, or does he hold on for a couple of years? Chris, I don't think he's going to have a choice to hold on for a couple of years. I think Mike Graham is right. Keith Henderson, I hope the Unite the Kingdom marches to the major cities across the UK. Somebody else said, Josh Walker. Churchill once said that when you make enemies, you make progress. Ooh. Reform has overtaken Labour and has for the best part of this year. And whenever I see Nige talk, he always answers the questions. Tim, good afternoon. It's a crime to say this, but West Ham are playing like Starmer. Or is it the other way round? Let's just not talk about football. Barry, Hammer's getting hammered, so sorry. Starmer is asking us to believe him after lie upon lie. The man is deplorable. Barry in Newcastle. Stop pitying me about being a West Ham fan. Dino and I... Oh, no, you're not. Who do you support, Dino? Oh, he's a QPR fan who puts fake tan on. Jezza, Keir Starmer, out and give Ryan Giggs until the end of the season. What, Ryan Giggs? Is Joe in... Possibly, but he does that thing, doesn't he? Clive's in Solihull, the posh part. Great show. He said the grown-ups are back. Well, if that's true, can we have the kids back, please? Or how about he does us all a bloody favour, resigns and calls the general election? Just hope Nige is ready. We'll get some calls on before Kev O'Sullivan at 7 o'clock. But, ladies... He's back. Honestly, John Lucas, Night News Editor at The Sun, known affectionately as Sarge. Your colleague Matt there saying you're loving the attention and you're walking around The Sun the whole time and you're just giving it large. Is this true?
I don't know who said that. That wouldn't be true.
No, it's lovely to have you back, and thank you. We always get on Drive on Talk a quick look at the main news stories tomorrow. Back to tomorrow, more about Madeleine McCann. Madeleine McCann was stolen to order for networks linked to Europe's most notorious paedophile, Marc Dutroux, Belgium's ex-Justice Minister has said. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. So this is... It comes. We've done a lot of work on the Maddie McCann case over last year, and on Christian Bruckner, who's the prime suspect. He is due to be released on Wednesday. Still a lot of secrecy about exactly what's going to happen with him. Is he even going to be on a tag? Is he going to be allowed to leave? He'll be released in Germany. Is he going to be allowed to leave the country? What sort of conditions is he going to...
Didn't somebody over the weekend say that he 100% believes that Bruckner kidnapped Madeleine McCann?
Yes.
Is it a cellmate or something?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a hell of a lot of evidence against him. The Sun did this documentary, which is on YouTube, went onto Channel 4 as well.
Brilliant, by the way. Watch it, people.
Yeah, and Rob Pattinson was behind that, and he's been speaking to Belgium's ex-Justice Minister, Mark Vervilgen, I think is how you say it. Now, this theory has been around before. This goes back to 2008 when there was an intelligence report leaked from Belgium that said that a gang of traffickers had targeted a particular child in Portugal and asked for that person to be kidnapped. Now, there's never been any solid evidence for it, but the point is, this chap is the guy who investigated Marc Dutroux. Now, a lot of listeners, viewers might not remember this guy. He's Europe's, no question about it, worst paedophile.
I know the name, Marc Dutroux.
Absolute monster. He's in prison now, but he's linked to at least 11 murders. Horrific. It's like something out of a horror film. Sadly, it's real life. And what this chap is saying is that he says, I've seen how these networks operate, and people think that it's not real, but I hate to say it is a real thing. When Dutroux was arrested, he had millions in his bank account, and he's just a sort of grubby, paedophile who had no reason to have that sort of money. So he's saying this about Madeleine McCann. What he's saying doesn't form part of the investigation in Germany, which is still ongoing. But it's a big sort of statement.
This is Robin Patterson again.
Yes, Rob speaking to him.
Great work from him. Great work from him. Read that tomorrow. It's a story that, I mean, it's almost become synonymous with this country over the last 20 years. And listen, bless her, but be interesting to get to the bottom of it. This next story is guaranteed to send anybody listening, pin back your lug holes, You know, you can't see a doctor or a dentist, right? The NHS tomorrow in the Sun will report, is down 252 million quid owed in treatment fees by foreign patients who have come here, had their operations and disappeared without paying. That's an absolute joke, man, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you've had an operation cancelled or, you know, delayed, or you're having problems seeing your GP, which many of us do, it's very, very frustrating. This has been a very long-running situation with people getting treatment here. It costs the NHS a lot of money, and they're routinely failing to actually collect this money.
People must pay for healthcare if they do not permanently live in the United Kingdom, people. But in the most urgent cases, they don't pay in advance. Who the hell made that decision? Hospitals routinely fail to collect after discharge, and analysis shows that in 250 million outstanding between 21 and 24.
That's right.
Just awful, man.
Yeah, I mean, things. So what they would charge is 100. Say if you had an outpatient appointment, it'd be 100 quid. If you have major surgery, it's £20,000, and obviously there are cases of people clearly coming to Britain because it's free at the point of service, unlike obviously somewhere like America where, you know...
I'm so glad you said it, because I know I've got a mate whose father's a surgeon who says that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And how is that right when I'm asking you to be political, the indigenous population who pay their stamp to pay for the bloody NHS can't get seen? That's outrageous.
Yeah, and I mean, Sajid Javid has been his former health secretary, and he's saying, look, the NHS isn't a charity. We need to be working harder to recover this cash. You know, whether maybe it becomes not about chasing down the individual. Maybe we need to start saying, well, let's hold these people's government accountable.
Absolutely.
You know, someone's from France,
Completely
or wherever
agree.
we go and get the French government,
or
to
just
stump
say
up the
no,
cash.
you're not having anything, whether you pretend to be, whether you're dying, not pretend, whether you're dying or you're very, very ill, until you pay. There's no other country in the world that you go and get free. Oh my God, does my head in. Get shirty. I love this. A Manchester United fan who went behind enemy lines to work as a barman at Manchester City's Etihad Stadium whilst wearing a Red Devil shirt has been sacked.
That's right. Well,
it's brilliant.
This is the football. I didn't really want to talk about any more football that weekend.
Having a dig. Who do
the
you support?
scoreline was 3-0.
Who do you support?
Arsenal.
All right, you look quite good and all right.
I can do it this weekend. Yeah, so this is a chap, he's working as a barman at the Etihad, and a punter spotted, unbelievably, he's got a Man U shirt on.
Brilliant.
Under his, he had a fleece, and it unzipped and you could see it, and almost sparked a riot. This guy's gone and reported him, and the club have had to come and frog march this guy out.
It's brilliant.
And sack him. I mean, there's been lots of banter online about it. You know, lots of people saying, well, it could have caused a huge row. Some people saying, well, considering the scoreline, he was probably lucky that
to be escorted
he
out.
didn't have to sit there and watch it all.
The reason I love The Sun is on many levels, but I love The Sun for the light-hearted stuff. This next story is world-bleeding class. I'm going to let you do this, because we've both had torrid love life. Love Not Black and White. Go on, Sarge, tell me. This is brilliant.
Well, penguins, those lovely, fluffy...
stinky things
Stinky
that wobble.
things. But we have nice cartoons about them. You've got Pingu.
Yes, Pingu.
And it's always said they mate for life. Not true.
Penguins do not mate for life.
They don't mate for life. If you thought they did, sorry, I've got to bust that myth.
They can divorce.
They divorce. And they can have affairs.
Hold on a second, sorry. So penguins, in their own language, get divorced?
They do. Well, and it gets quite... It actually gets quite complicated. So this comes from the scientists at the British Antarctic Survey. So they've been studying penguins for years, and they will go and find another partner, and even more. So this is a chap, Peter Fretwell, who's the head of this this expedition.
Yeah,
he says some of them will do the dirty on their partners, and he's talking about the breeds of the Gentoos and the Adelaides in particular. They have big stone nests, and if you give them the right... if another penguin comes in with the right kind of stone, the other penguins will sell their... This is, he says, sell their services for a stone. And he says...
So there's prostitute penguins as well. There's penguins selling their bodies for stones.
And it gives
to get stoned.
Whole other meaning to pick up a penguin.
He did it. I love
I
it.
did it. The penguins, they only live for 15 to 20 years.
So you got to have some fun. Christ,
Yeah.
I mean, we live for 80.
You got to pack it in.
Well, pack it in or... Fantastic. You're not going to live that down. You're a good man. We love having you on. Out tomorrow, the Sun newspaper, Maddie Moore on Madeleine McCann. Allegedly, according to this Belgian's ex-justice minister, she could have been part of a paedophile ring that was stolen to order. NHS tourist trap, £252 million that hasn't been collected by the NHS. But you can't see a doctor, peeps, and love not black and white. Penguins don't mate for life and can even divorce and have an affairs. They have a lot to pack it in. John Lucas will be back tomorrow. By the Sun, it's the best newspaper. Back in 3.
I gather Oxford at the moment are not thinking of taking action. I think it lowers the respect that many of us have of Oxford University if someone speaking in their name can have a voice.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7, Kev O'Sullivan here with the Political Asylum. Brilliant show from 7. Petri Hoskins from 10 and Mike Graham back in the morning at 6 o'clock. Morning Glory. Margaret! I don't buy Harry's charm offensive at all. I thought he was supposed to keep quiet and button it. Couldn't agree more. Let's go quickly. Couple of callers. Southampton. Kev, good evening, sir. How are you?
Yes, good afternoon, Jez. I'd just like to say that I'm a proud Englishman, and this on Saturday, I witnessed, what I took away from it was this is the silent majority who took to the streets, behaved impeccably, and said to this government and the past government, we've had enough of you now. We've had enough of people in the government and outside of the government, what you're doing to destroy English, Welsh, Scots and Irish people, and I must say British people in general. We've had enough, right? People were there, Jez, in wheelchairs, different creeds, colours, and it was fantastic.
So how do you feel that the mainstream media and the government would label it as 100,000 people who are far-right thugs?
It's a disgrace. It is a disgrace. They can't even bring themselves to tell the truth, Jezza. There was, in my opinion, there was probably 500,000. I would say half a million. And if you, unfortunately, I couldn't make it, Jezza, because it was my weekend for the kids, and I'll never let my kids down. But otherwise, I'd have been up there on the train. I was so proud of the people that turned out. I felt I had a tear in my eye at one stage, right? And we need our country back. We need it back, Jezza. And this is the silent majority now have risen, have woken. They would do everything peacefully, everything they need to do, but they won't continue with what's going on, and they're trying to erode our culture.
Could not agree more. Don't think me rude. I have to go. But Kev, I said it last week and I'll say it again. I believe I got a text from a guy last week that was the most poignant text ever. He said that when the silent majority realise their voice can be heard, the government, whatever colour, is in trouble if it doesn't listen. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Wiltshire very quickly. Laura, literally a minute on Talk Drive. What you got?
Very, very happy because I'm now living in a Reform constituency. Used to be a member of the Tory party for 40 years, like you. Well, I resigned 2 years ago. Like you, voted Reform last year. Didn't think we had a cat and chance as hell. And Danny Kruger is a proper Conservative.
Is he your MP? Is he your MP?
Now, they've changed the boundaries last
So I
year.
wanted to ask very quickly. So Danny Kruger today, the big news is Shadow Cabinet Minister defects from the Tories to Reform. Different from a Nadine Dorries or somebody who's not in Parliament. This is a sitting MP and a member of the Shadow Cabinet. I thought quite a seismic moment, to be absolutely honest. And I always ask the question, you know, how would the constituents feel? You're happy that he's made that transition, right?
There'll be a lot of pearl clutching from some people, but I'm telling you, for ordinary people in Wiltshire, it's fantastic news. He's not a closet Lib Dem Tory. He's a proper Tory, which is why he said what he said and needs to be part of Reform. Onwards and upwards. It's great news.
Good to have you on, Laura. Thank you very much indeed, Laura in Wiltshire. So what a day it's been. So much in the news. Really appreciate your involvement. Kev will take it from here. What do you make of Danny Kruger? Is it a seismic moment? A sitting Tory MP, a shadow cabinet minister moving over to Reform? To me, that seems huge. There are many people in Reform who don't want to be the retirement home of frustrated Tories. I get that as well. Also, Starmer. His own MPs are saying he could be gone by May if he doesn't sort it out. You have to say, he doesn't seem to have the judgment, the nous, or his finger on the